listeners on ABC News Radio through Sydney and Canberra. Great to have your company for Port Adelaide and Sydney as round 21 rolls into the Adelaide Oval. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco calling the action. We've got Josh Money downstairs who we'll head down to in just a moment's time as we gear up for the coin toss. One late change tonight. Peter Laddams in for Joel Amati for the Sydney Swans. Luke Parker is the sub for them. Quinton Narkle for the Power. And there is another game happening over at the MCG, Collingwood and Carlton, that will give you scores of across the night. The coin toss has just occurred in the middle. So let's check in downstairs with Josh Money. Good evening, Josh.
Good evening to you, Aaron. Connor Rosie's just won the coin toss for Port Adelaide and they will kick to the Northern Cathedral end of the ground. It's a beautiful night for footy, really, albeit a little cold, but no rain, no wind to speak of, and a pretty decent crowd building as well, given we are competing with the Olympics and the Thunderbirds are also in action tonight, but certainly a big crowd for this blockbuster and a huge test for Port Adelaide. And Alir brings up game 150 quite fittingly against his old side, and as you've already mentioned, Peter Laddams gets a surprising crack at his old side with Joel Amati late out. Let's have a look at the benches for Port Adelaide. Lockie Jones, Jackson Mead, Francis Evans and Jason Horn. Francis start on the bench. As you've mentioned, Quinton Narkle is their sub. For the Swans, local boy Matty Roberts gets a crack. James Jordan, Corey Warner and Logan McDonald. And you're doing pretty well if you've got Luke Parker as your sub. Should be an absolute cracker.
Luke Parker, the sub for third time in 4 games this year, so trying to force his way back into the side. But whenever he does get injected, he's certainly very impactful. He's averaging about 16 touches per game, despite the fact he's had limited game time. So we'll see what he can do once again in that role tonight. Pretty decent crowd considering the Super Netball Grand Finals on across town. Port Adelaide and Sydney in the off-Broadway blockbuster. Great to have your company for Saturday night footy. Quick tips, Kirsty?
I'm going with the Power. Can't help it.
Josh?
On form, Port Adelaide.
I'll go with Sydney. Crossy, kick us off.
So much to play for Port Adelaide. Potentially in the top 4 at the end of the round with a win. In Sydney, we know they're shaky at the top as they build towards the finals. We're underway with the first bounce. It'll be Brodie Grundy to go against Jordan Sweet, who got it down. No clean possession out of the middle. Then Rowbottom comes in for Sydney. Sends it to centre half forward. Off Hayward to ground. Bergman comes in, knocks it away for Port Adelaide. Adams has the ball. Tried his best to get a kick away. Wasn't able to. Good tackle made by Farrell. And he'll pick it up inside defensive 50 for Port Adelaide.
Looks to switch. Farrell in the right back pocket. Zerk Thatcher marks uncontested and wants to go. Heads on a run through the outer wing. Kick down the line a little bit hot for Rioli. Too high for the small man, but he did enough to paddle it to Dixon. Diving handball to Burgoyne. Then back to Rioli. Off balance, he heads towards the 50. Shallow entry that bounces off the shins of Georgiadis. Chad Warner there for the Swans. Hands it to Lloyd. Now Goulden tunnels it through. Little 1-2 with Cunningham. Goulden spearing it through centre wing on the outer side, looking for Laddams. 1-on-1, battling with Sweet. Brought it to ground. Head over the footy. Butters knocks it towards the boundary line and it rolls over. True centre wing in front of the Bashir stand.
Well, again, it's a pretty hot footy early, isn't it? The intensity's up as you'd expect in a big game like tonight.
So, both Ruckman on the logo on centre wing out in the eastern side. And Grundy couldn't get a hand back to the ball after he pushed his man away. Through come Heaney for Sydney. Hand pass out the back. Rowbottom with his second possession. Overcooks the kick straight across the ground. Missed Mills. Comes back. Forces Boak away from the ball towards the boundary line near the interchange gates. Boak on hands and knees. Logan Evans came through. Took it over the boundary line. We'll get a throw in. Just looking at Peter Laddams. He's got more hair and more ink than he had when he was at Port Adelaide.
Nice flowing mullet tonight under the Saturday night spotlight. Score check in the Super Netball Grand Final. Vixens by 2 goals. Still 5 to play in the second quarter. Toss back in. Tap goes the way of Rowbottom. He wants to keep it in play as he runs towards the boundary line. Hacked it through centre wing, broadcast side. Bounces off Logan Evans. Found its way towards Fox, who's tackled, dropped it. Port trying to force it forward. Bounces to Georgiadis, keeps it in play. Wheeling away from Blakey. Curls it into the 50. Rising distance. Clunks it over Radulao. Takes the mark. 20 out, 45-degree angle to the left.
And terrific work. I think it was from big Jordan Sweet here on the wing. Just a really impactful tackle and close on Robbie Fox, I think it was, from Sydney. And terrific forward craft there from Charlie Dixon.
So Dixon will start his approach inside the attacking 50. Short jog, leans back, strikes true. Port on the board first. It took 3 minutes to get there. 1 straight 6, the Swans yet to score. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco.
It was a great inside 50 by Georgiades then. When you know you've got Big Chardy and Radicalia down in the forward line, there's no risk in rolling and getting the ball in quickly, particularly if they're 1v1. You may as well put it to their advantage and let them fly at the ball. And that's exactly what they did on that occasion. And Charlie's come from behind and taken a big clunk mark. And that'll do his confidence the world of good to get on the scoreboard early and have your forward line humming early days of the game is always a good sign.
And he just stiff-armed McCann, I think, his direct opponent, then to get the separation to allow him to launch at that footy. And as we said in the end, almost took an uncontested mark and a great finish.
Rathanalea has had a finger, I think, pulled back into place while the break there after the goal went about their business in the middle now, and Heaney pulled up from the ruck contest. Ball up again. Grundy takes front position. Sweet gets around him. Wines with a kick inside 50. Rathanalea flies. Ball comes to the front. Rosie slips it to Drew. He was flung in a tackle, didn't get a kick to the ball. Now it's out to Adams, gave it to Grundy. Down to half forward with his kick for McLean. Right over the back of him, and the umpire said that was okay. Was Aaliyah, and the ball now near the boundary. And finally in the hands of Florent, who received a hand pass from Goulden. And Florent taking the ground in the tackle. And a ball up just ahead of centre wing for Sydney.
Port by 6. Tapped down by Grundy. Goulden another touch. Gets the quick clearance. May have caught a hand on the way as it scrubs up to left half forward. Awkward bounce for Bergman. Found its way to Wines. Hands it back to Bergman. The power, a nice little chain. Zirk Thatcher. Then Farrell retreats all the way to defensive 50. Alia's waiting. Game 150. A couple of cheers from the home crowd and a beautiful kick. Hits up Georgiades' defensive edge. He'll hand it to Rosie running by. Now Drew into the 50. One-on-one. Big Asama. Rathanalea tosses Aaron Francis to ground with ease and takes the contested mark. 25 out, slight angle to the left.
And Kirsty, that was Port Adelaide at its best, wasn't it? Just some really terrific ball movement. And again, we talk about Port Adelaide liking to use the corridor, and when there's speed on the ball, there was nothing that Francis could have done then. If it wasn't a mark, it probably would have been paid front on contact. And terrific contest and final mark and execution there from Big Radicalia.
The Fijian swingman, Esava Rathanalea, 2 goals last week. He won't be on the board to start this game. Started right, not enough to swing back. Minor score, Port 1-1-7, the Swans yet to score. 6 minutes played opening terms. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Over at the MCG, the Blues by a point over Collingwood. And in the Super Netball Grand Final, the Thunderbirds have hit the front by 2 goals.
So Sydney just content to chip it out of defence. It's with Florent. He's gone back defensively into that scoreboard pocket. Cunningham with the ball. Holds it up. Sydney retained possession. Another short pass to Lloyd. Called the play on. Forced to go back by hand to Cunningham, who then clears the area long. Ball came off the foot of Sweet. Sweeping on it was Butters. Great pickup. Ran through the pack. Went backwards to Aaliyah. Aaliyah wide with his kick near the boundary line, taken by Rioli. So he's still 60 from goal.
What about the take from Butters? That was unbelievable, wasn't it? Clean, at speed, outstanding play.
Rioli puts it into that scoreboard pocket, puts it wide, and Lloyd goes across and marks it, but he won't be credited with that because it was out on the full. So he moves it quickly. Cunningham again, just at the top of the goal square. Now he comes across to McCartan from left back pocket to right back pocket. McCartan just inside the boundary line with a mark, goes back to the goal square. Sydney just retaining possession as they do.
Blakey with the ball, had 2 Brownlow votes the last time these sides met in 2023. Port won that by 2 as he booms it up to the outer side, and Zirk Thatcher at the back of the pack, read it best. Takes the intercept mark and pops it short to Rioli. Too far out to score. He'll wheel inside, low and hard, hooking it up to Rosie, who charged out in the scoreboard pocket. Takes it in front, 45 out, tight angle.
Crossy, you talk about Sydney wanting to maintain possession coming out of their back 50, and Port Adelaide defended the last couple of bits of play from Sydney in their ball movement beautifully, eventually forcing the kick long down the line. Zirk Thatcher, outstanding critical contest in the air and re-entry shot on goal.
Rosie will start in front of the Wanganeen stand. The Cathedral in the backdrop. Heads for home from the tight angle and misses everything. Out on the full to the right-hand side. Port's lead remains at 7. 1-1 to the Swans, yet to score. 8 played in the opening terms. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco with you.
So Cunningham takes the free kick, takes it long and takes it over the back of the pack where Zirk Thatcher picked it up, gave it to Sweet. The ruckman gave it back to Zirk Thatcher. In a tackle, he lost the ball. Sweet was there, gave it to Zirk Thatcher. They just play among yourselves. Ball now caught in and under. Finally, Sydney extracted. Corey Warner down the line with a quick kick. Houston with the intercept, straight across the field immediately with his kick. At a half-back, he found Bergman, who drops it in short to Horn Francis just inside the centre square. Backs up, takes his time, assesses, thought about going into the corridor and instead pulls it wide to the broadcast side. Bergman with the mark, goes all the way to the boundary pretty much to Mead, and they're just behind centre wing.
Mead looking for options. The Swans have closed down the corridor, so he'll head long up to half forward. Floating in front, Radonolea. Another big grab. Gives it off to Houston, who turned straight into the Laddams wall, but did well. Got out of dodge, spun a 360 and gave it to Farrell. And he flared it wide. Up to right half forward to Boak. Game 365, which moves him into outright 13th. His kick inside 50 is magnificent. Perfectly weighted to Jason Horn-Francis in front of the scoreboard.
We've seen early on Port Adelaide with 2 variations of their game style, being able to switch the footy and go quickly and get a 1v1, and then on that occasion just was slowed up by Sydney's defence, but still managed to work their way around and get a deep inside forward 50 entry.
The Hornet opens the angle, snaps on the left and curls it through. Port with the hot start at the Adelaide Oval. 2-1-13. The Swans yet to score through 10 minutes. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Over at the MCG, the Blues by 3 over Collingwood. And in the Super Netball Grand Final, it's half-time. Scores level, 28 goals apiece between the Thunderbirds and the Vixens.
Well, we're almost halfway through this first quarter of actual game time, and Port Adelaide are playing a really sensible, smart brand of footy. As you said, Kirsty, they know when to go quick. They're prepared to also kick mark and work their way through Sydney Swans' defence. But I think the 2 numbers they'll be really happy with at the moment is their contested ball, so they're +5, and the inside 50s. It's 7-2 Port Adelaide's way, so they're getting their front half game going as well, and looking quite dangerous and threatening at the moment.
Set to go again. Back of the middle. High bounce. Laddams into the ruck against Sweet, and the umpire will recall it. Just went out of the centre circles.
Laddams looks different, doesn't he?
Well, he does. He's got more ink.
Because of his ink and hair, looks a different player.
He does. He looks to have fined down a bit, to be honest, from his time at Port Adelaide. So out of the middle, it's off the ruck contest from Wines. Oh, it's bounced to Dixon. Quick hand pass to Rosie. Outside of the right foot. Hit the post. Minor score. 2-2-14 is the lead and the score for Port Adelaide. Swans finding it hard going early stages of the opening term.
They head out through the left back pocket. The 2-time best and fairest, Jake Lloyd. Down the line to the outer wing. Laddams rose, couldn't claim it, but got a second chance on the bounce. Front square. Handed it off to Grundy, who walks it over the line. So boundary throw in to come in front of the Odie stand. He's got a bit of Tom Hickey about him, Peter Laddams, now, I think.
Yeah, that's a fair shout.
We'll get back to Tom Hickey because there's an interesting history revolving our milestone man tonight. Toss back in, Sweet won it down. Horn Francis, big fend off of Goulden. The 2 superstars in the making colliding, and the power youngster wins out. Kicks towards the 50, free kick push, and Roberts will receive the pill. So Aliir playing game 150 tonight was traded for a future second round selection at the time to Sydney. That pick would get on traded to the Eagles, and it ended up getting Tom Hickey to the Swans.
So Roberts went short to Goulden, who just took it ahead of Horn Francis, and I just got the feeling Horn Francis has been set for a job that'll keep his mind on the game, and he looks like he's following Goulden around the ground. As, again, Sydney just chipped the ball. Heaney's got it at true centre-half back. Off he goes to the run of the Lizard, and Blakey's kick was low and hard and ineffective. Turned over. Drew comes back the other way with a quick bolt inside forward 50. Not quite making it. Heaney took it, quickly got the kick away. Now it's Wicks, and the hand pass off to Blakey. He's off and running on the eastern wing, and inside 50, Jones comes across and takes an intercept mark, drops it into Drew at right half back on the point of the square for Port Adelaide.
Drew on the 45 into the square, spots up Bergman. Contract rumours through the week that's linked him back towards Victoria. The kick's not great. Set up in the air for Logan Evans. He's got 2 to beat. Jordan closing with McLean. Did well to keep fighting. Trying to paddle it off to Mead. Dives onto the footy in the end. Pylon on top of him, and he's done well. Logan Evans got away with that one. Ball up to come right half forward for the Swans.
Tell you what, he's been a find, hasn't he, Logan Evans? 18-year-old, he's been outstanding.
Just his 7th game tonight. Port Adelaide by 14. The Swans yet to score. Dixon wins it down against Laddams. Found Wines, and now Drew hacks it out of there. Bouncing ball around the body through centre wing broadcast side. McCartan cuts it off. Knocked it towards the square. Volleyed forward by Rosie. Finds Horne-Francis at half forward. Spins away from Blakey. Lost his man. And inside 50, his kick is delightful. Back with the flight, Connor Rosie reels it in. Tight angle, 15 out, left forward pocket.
That's Jason Horne-Francis at his best, I think. Not afraid to tap the footy, particularly when you've got people coming the other way.
Rosie goes for goal and spins it through perfectly. The skipper's on the board, and Port Adelaide are racing out of the blocks. 3-2-20. The Swans yet to score. 14 played opening term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, Premiership player Kirsty Lamb, 4-time showdown medalist Josh Franco.
Well, I tell you what, the temperature in the Sydney Swans coaches box would be starting to lift just ever so slightly. I reckon John Long might be really concerned that the way his Chargers are playing currently, they're getting smashed at contested ball. The inside 50 count currently is 9-3. They can't get their hands on the footy. They're losing uncontested ball, and they don't even look like going inside forward 50 at the moment. But conversely, Port Adelaide, every time they get the ball, again, whether it's quick or measured, they're looking dangerous.
Port Adelaide +9, contested possession in the middle. Dixon, there was reach over the top on Dixon by Laddams. As a result, free kick Port Adelaide, hands it off straight away. Butters into Rioli, dropped an easy mark but picked it up straight away. Then he goes out wide with his kick. Mead couldn't take it. Boak picked it up, somehow got a hand pass to Butters. His slick reflex handball found Mead, and then his kick inside 50 cut off by McCartan coming over the top. A little bit sore as he landed, punched it away from Ratanolea and over the boundary line outside 50, but only just for Port Adelaide.
Port by 20 over at the MCG. Carlton lead Collingwood 4 points to nothing. So the Blues really should have a bigger lead, but haven't quite cashed in. Dry conditions as well. Tossed in Dixon down the throat of Rosie, surging by, kicks into the 50 and hits up the charging Francis Evans. Oh, that was an absolutely perfect set play. A makeshift ruckman Dixon hits up Butters and then finds Francis Evans.
You dream of those hits as a midfielder, don't you? Just one on the fly. Very little body work from Sydney Swans midfield at the moment. They certainly need to lift for their side and start to put some body on these Port midfielders because they're starting to run away with it.
4-6 for the year for Frankie Evans. He crosses the paint of 50, kicks deadly straight from 45. The alarm bells will be ringing in the Sydney Swans coaching box. They've lost 4 of the last 5, Sydney, and are yet to get on the board in 17 minutes. Down 4-2, 26 to nothing. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport as we close in on time on in the opening term.
And Kirsty, you talk about getting some body on the Port Adelaide midfielder. Zach Butters, who does like to rip through the front of the stoppage. He did get a clean run in it, but as equally as good as he is around the footy, his disposal by foot and his decision-making is unbelievable. And just looking at the replay, the kick to Francis Evans was absolutely weighted beautifully. And Francis Evans, just one of those players that just keeps bobbing up in the right spot. Went back in a great finish. What a start for the Power.
use the adjective that's going around in American politics at the moment. This is weird. This is really weird. Sydney completely out of sorts, and out of the middle, Rowbottom with a tackle as Drew looked to break away for Port Adelaide. Forces a ball up. Grundy gets around Dixon and gets the tap down. Heaney had the ball ripped away from him. Wines gave it to Burgoyne, inside 50 for Port. Mills came across, the skipper for Sydney, and knocked it away to the boundary line some 25 metres with the punch. And we'll get a throw in about 25 around from the goal face that Port Adelaide's attacking. They don't need a goal at the other end at the moment because Port Adelaide is dominating the forward play.
The northern end is known as the hill, but it's all downhill towards that end. Tossed in, Grundy, the fist, knocked it back towards the boundary line. Port by 26, and Collingwood have the first goal against Carlton at the MCG. 7-5 they lead. Both games closing in on time on. Half-time in the Super Netball Grand Final. Scores level between the Thunderbirds and the Vixens. 28 goals apiece. Tossed in, Grundy won it down. He was looking for Heaney. Bounced wide towards Drew. Off a step, on off balance on the left. Centred the kick and hit Georgiadis. Used the body to just get off Blakey. Took it in with one arm, and what about the effort from Drew there? Could have let it roll out. Did everything he could. And a magnificent assist. Straight in front of goal is Mitch Georgiadis.
I'll tell you, I talked about the temperature in the Swans coach's box. Tell you what, John Longmire's blood pressure would be going through the roof at the moment. They are nowhere near this contest at the moment, the Swans.
Mitch Georgiadis straight in front. Makes it 5 unanswered for Port Adelaide. Time on in the opening term, 5-2-32. The Power lead the Swans, who are yet to score. The ladder leaders are unravelling at the Adelaide Oval, and Port's credibility is surging. They've played 19 minutes. Your experts Saturday night for Saturday Night Footy on ABC Sport. Premiership player Kirsty Lamb, All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco.
You spoke about then, Josh. They're getting hammered around the footy. Contested possessions 25-11, but even uncontested possession 40-28. So they're just not getting their hands on the football at all. And every time Port get their hands on it, they look really damaging. To kick 5 goals straight is a great start to this game.
And inside 50s, 12-3. I think it's been 15 minutes since Sydney have gone inside their forward 50.
Hard to remember that they did go inside forward 50. Neither ruckman touches the ball immediately. Butters just slapped it forward. Mead almost picked it up. This is all Port Adelaide. Now Rowbottom comes in. His hand pass wasn't effective. Florent off the ground just hacks it to half forward, and Bergman with the intercept mark for Port Adelaide. As Josh has suggested, a bit of global warming going on in the Swans coach's box at the moment as the kick goes long. Blakey pushed under the ball surely. He went up. Georgiadis took the mark. He was about to break away, and the umpire said no. And a spectacular leap over the top by Blakey, but he was pushed, said the umpire.
Would have been a contender for the Olympic high jump this year, I reckon, but put himself in a lot of trouble with that push, almost landing on his head with the front flip. Kick down the line on the outer side, hits the deck, and Lockie Jones is wrapped up in a tackle from McDonald.
It wasn't Simone Biles, though, was it?
No flips or curls.
Just looks like in defence, Port Adelaide are going very one-on-one and taking away Sydney's uncontested game, forcing them long down the line, and they're paying the price for that. They can't get the game on their terms at all, the Swans.
Crunching tackle from the ball up. Heaney takes down Drew. Port by 32. The Swans yet to score. And a holding free kick goes the way of the Swans. Sweet up against Grundy. Wants to go quickly. The big man from Sturt into the 50. Off hands. Rolls the way of Farrell. Has Jordan on his tail, so he gets it out of there. Quick kick to the broadcast wing. Bounces in the path of Boak. Battling. Trying his best to get away from Blakey. He's wrapped up and escorted over the boundary line. It'll be tossed back into play. And the Port fans are up and about. What an incredible start this has been from the Power. As I mentioned, goalless in the last time they met Sydney last year. And they're up by 5 unanswered goals here in the opening term.
The ball comes back in. And there was holding there. It'll go to Grundy again on Sweet. Grundy with a quick hand pass out the back to Warner. Chad Warner with perhaps his first disposal. Down to half forward. Oh, and that's Sydney's night in a nutshell at the moment. Ball came off, well, it didn't come off the lower leg of Jordan, but it came off his knee, said the boundary umpire. and straight out over the boundary line. So a good result for Sydney as it turns out, because they're close to the attacking 50, as Sweet will go in front of Grundy, who comes around him, knocks it down. Rowbottom couldn't take it. Butters was there, quick left foot, gets it towards centre wing. Mills and Boak engage again. In comes Wines to help out. Then a great hand pass over the top. Finds Boak down to half forward. Georgiades with the mark.
Kick away from a score. Georgiades comes inside, looking for Adam to lay up. Kick a little shallow, bounces though, completely lost Cunningham. Rioli pounces and bounces it through from 20. Everything is going right for Port Adelaide. Sydney's worst nightmare coming to fruition at the Adelaide Oval. Port 6-2-38, the Swans yet to score, 22 played. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Josh Money downstairs.
And when it rains, it pours for the Swans. Isaac Heaney's having his shoulder looked at the bench, and maybe even more concerningly, Logan McDonald's just limped off the ground looking very proppy. Luke Parker's putting the boots on already, so he's expecting he may have to be interjected a little earlier than perhaps he thought. McDonald actually going right down to the rooms in front of me now.
Oh, big trouble there for the Swannies. And just going back to that inside 50 from Port Adelaide, I thought Georgiades could have held the ball a little bit longer. They had numbers back, the Swans, but Willie Rioli, take a bow. Once the ball's in his hands and he's got time and space, he rarely misses. Outstanding finish.
As is the way in modern footy. His reward is to go to the bench. Chad Warner got a little bit of a toe on the ball out of the middle, then made a tackle on Farrell as he picked it up. A little bit of push and shove in the afters. Warner obviously frustrated, along with, I imagine, all 18 of his fellow, or all 17 of his fellow Swans out there, as the ruck contest goes on now. Finds its way to this broadcast side. Rowbottom with a little toe poke on the ball. On the ground was Grundy. Did he drag it in? Umpire is going to pinch him for it. There's no doubt about that. And it will be a free kick. It'll eventually go against Grundy, and eventually Rosie will get up. No, it'll be Drew, the second tackler, dropped it in short. And it was taken by Butters, centre of the ground. Butters just veers wide.
Butters heads towards the 50, kick about 35 out. Francis front position brought it down. Front and square was Florent for the Swans. Gives it off to Chad Warner, thrusting it forward to Adams. Caught in the tackle, had to give it away. Florent's now under pressure, hits the deck and they all come in. Port Adelaide's pressure is immense right now. Oh, looked like the Swans were surging off half back. Port Adelaide closed them down with ease. Grundy taps it overhead looking for Goulden. Rosie's there battling with him. Wrenching it out was Burgoyne. Duked it off to Drew for the power. Tried to get it to Mead. Buffeted it off the ball. Gets a second bite. Out wide to Logan Evans. Then Horn Francis. Now Burgoyne trying to get around the umpire. Got some space. Gathers behind centre wing out of side. Heads up to right half forward. Port by 38. Dixon there. He'll hand it to Butters. Chips it. Calm and casually to Georgiades. Leaned back, struck it well, and the uncontested mark, 25 out, tight ankle to the right.
Well, we've got 3 minutes of actual game time left in this first quarter, and it can't come quick enough, that quarter time siren for John Longmire and the Sydney Swans. And I guess when you're under siege like this, you're turning to your leaders, your guns, to actually get involved in the game. So Chad Warner needs to get involved. Rowbottom needs to get involved. Heaney, he's on the bench at the moment. He's had a little bit, but just not enough of their guns and their prime movers getting hold of the footy.
Mitch Georgiades in front of the Wanganeen stands. Misses to the left. A kick from 45, just a little off. Port 6-3-39. The Swans still yet to score. 26 played in the opening term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. And the Swans say, we've got to go. So they bang it long to the outer side.
Florent with a kick. And it's off hands to Boak. Slipped it to Zirk Thatcher. Across the body, scrubbed kick. Works to the advantage of Horn Francis. Tries to break the tackle of Roberts. Took him down. Umpire called play on. Socket off the ground then by Butters. And socket on the full over the line. So free kick and blessed relief for the Swans. And they elect to go back through Corey Warner to Francis. He breaks now. He'll bring it to this broadcast side of the ground. Looking for Cunningham, and late came Rosie, who was set up, and Rosie knocked it over the boundary line. Left half forward for the power, and it's been on that left side of the screen for all of us. 6-3-39 to zip in favour of the power in the opening quarter.
Toss back into play. Sweet front position, got it down to Drew, straight inside 50, off a step for the power, wobbler, little wide of McCartan, coming out of the defensive goal square, Mills, it's buffeted off a couple of shins, rolling towards the boundary line, Cunningham gathers, handball inside, cut off by Rosie though, spun a 360 and found his partner in crime in Butters, 1-2 with Dixon. Burne-Jones now tight in the angle, rolled it towards the top of the goal square, Florent there, taken down, gave it away, Georgiadis. It's fast. It's quick and it's deadly. Port Adelaide's coming from all angles. 7-3-45. Sydney still yet to score. A minute to play in this opening term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, premiership player Kirsty Lamb, All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco.
You know you're playing good football when your handballs are elite like that. The handball chain from Port Adelaide, 3 or 4 people involved, and just surge footy. Sometimes that's all you need is just to keep moving the ball forward, and you never know what could happen. And Georgiades is just sitting, waiting on the top of the goal square and pretty much gets a cheap one, really. But I love the way Port are just surging the ball forward at all occasions, and they're putting the defence of the Swans under enormous pressure up there.
Just to put a bit of context around how this game's unfolded for our listeners, contested ball at the moment is 39-16. That's plus 23. That's unheard of.
Well, it's about to get even worse. Drew takes it out of the middle, receive from Horne-Francis, and the ball will come back to be a free kick, and it'll be Horne-Francis who was pushed in the back after he kicked the ball. Drew will get the advantage down the ground, takes it now off to Houston, kicks it long, contest 25 out. There was a push in the middle of the pack, and the Swans will get some relief this time through Francis. Just to interject too, that Georgiades, that's his second goal, his 100th in AFL football. Francis now goes from one pocket to the other, and he finds Mills. Mills goes down the line, and Logan Evans came out, took it, gave it across to Boak. His kick inside forward 50 came to Mills, and then Roberts with the handball receive, and the kick was good. And he finds Adams, and the Swans are momentarily out of their defensive area.
Short pass that was just the required 15. Favourable call there from Justin Power as it found its way to Chad Warner. Now Matty Roberts, the St. Peter's product, looks back inside to Cunningham.
I just don't want to go forward at the moment, Sydney.
Chipping it around, stuck in the left half-back region. Mills now looks for the switch through defensive 50. McCartan alone at right half-back. But Port Adelaide quickly shift. They've flooded the wing ahead of him. McCartan has to lower the eyes to Grundy, who's charging the big man, a big sprint. All the way up to right half-back to just get the required 15 delivery. And now has nothing to go to. Sydney's been absolutely stunted this quarter. Down by 45 points. And yet to score. A phenomenal start from the home side. The Power are demolishing the ladder leaders. A standing ovation at the Adelaide Oval. We talk about bolstering credibility. This is certainly one way to do it. Fresh off a win over the Blues, Port Adelaide thumping the Swans. Goals at quarter time, 2 to Georgiades, singles to Rosie Rioli, Horne-Francis, Dixon and Francis Evans. 7-3-45, the Power to the Swans, who are yet to score. Over at the MCG, scores level quarter time there. 2-2-14 Collingwood to Carlton's 1-8-14. The goal scorers Mackay, DeGoey and Nick Dacos. The Super Netball Grand Finals into the third quarter. The Adelaide Thunderbirds hold a slim lead over the Melbourne Vixens, 31-29. We're going to get an Olympic update in a moment's time as we prepare to take you to the Paris Olympics following this game here at the Adelaide Oval. But for now, on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app, this is Saturday Night Footy on ABC Sport.
It's the most magical time of the year, right? Footy season. This season, you can get your footy live and ad-free on the ABC Listen app.
Unbelievable.
AFL, NRL, men's, women's. Whatever you fix, we've got you covered. Every goal, try, mark and tackle, called by ABC Sport's expert commentary team.
A wonderful goal! Game, set, bingo!
100% pure footy, live and ad-free on the ABC Listen app.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL Premiership season.
AFL. On your radio.
On digital. And take us with you on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Well, no one saw this coming. A ridiculously hot start from Port Adelaide, who leads Sydney 45 points to nothing. It's an amazing way to kickstart this off-Broadway blockbuster. We'll give you some scores from the other codes across the night as well and what's happening over at the MCG. But we're building up to take you, to our listeners in South Australia, to the resumption of the Paris Olympics and our coverage with our ABC Sport team. It's been a pretty big night of action. We had a couple of medals in the pool, and I think one of the greatest stories of the entire Olympics since Saya Sakakibara in the BMX racing. Ned Hall's standing by to preview it all for what's to come. Ned, what are we looking forward to tonight?
It just doesn't stop, Aaron, to be honest, does it? There's a real gold rush finishing off the programme on day 7. On day 8, action already underway. And great to see as well, over on the athletics track in the Stade de France, the blue ribboned event. The men's 100 metres heats are being run at the moment. And we're very shortly about to get a look at Joshua Azzopardi, the Australian chance in that, with Rowan Browning also going through the heats there. Also, at these Olympic Games, in the athletics in the middle distance races, the athletes, if they don't get through the first heat, have the chance to run again in repecharges. Catriona Bassett and Abby Caldwell did just that in the 800 metres, and both of them successfully made it through into the semi-finals of that event. So, great performance by them. In the rowing, not such good news. 4th place finishes for Tara Rigney in the women's singles sculls, and in the women's 8, they also came 4th. The men's 8 placed 6th in the final there. It means the rowing regatta ends with just 1 bronze medal for Australia, the poorest return for Australia in the rowing since the Seoul Olympics of 1992. We've got equestrian underway at the moment in the dressage, the beach volleyball, a victory for Tom Hodges and Zach Schubert earlier today, which may mean they go through as lucky losers into the quarterfinals of that competition. And taking to the court just about now, in fact, actually, we've got John Peers and Matt Ebden. They're playing for the gold medal against the American pairing of Austin Krajcek and Rajiv Ram. Great performance by them. They're getting a silver medal at the very least. Could well turn gold. Medals up for grabs in the sailing. It sounds like there's good wind today in Marseille for the sailors to get out there. And then tonight, as the swimming programme moves towards its conclusion, there's the 100-metre butterfly final coming up. The mixed medley relay final will also be there. Australia would expect to be in that, and we've got medals coming up in the athletics track. The women's 100 metres gold medal will be decided tonight. The 4x400 metre mixed medley relay, that will also be decided, and we've got team sports coming up too. The cycling road race, that's also underway, very early stages, but Simon Clark, Michael Matthews and Ben O'Connor are all taking part there, and that's a little taste of what's happening on day 8 at the Paris 2024 Olympics.
Thanks, Ned. We'll check back in at three-quarter time. Plenty happening here. So Port Adelaide up by 45 points, 7-3-45 to the Swans, who are yet to score. Now, the last time they were scoreless at quarter time was round 13 of last year, but it's Port Adelaide's biggest or second biggest quarter time margin in history. So 53 points they had over Adelaide in 2000. This is now 45 points over the Swans. Plenty happening. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross with you, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco, your experts. We'll get to them in a moment, but there's a lot happening downstairs as well. Josh Money watching on the Sydney Swans bench.
Yeah, and there's mixed news for Logan McDonald from the Swans. The good news is he returned from the rooms and looks set to take part in this second quarter. The bad news is he was available for the John Longmire huddle at quarter time, and the Sydney Swans coach absolutely gave his side a huge bake. Very animated from the Swans coach. Certainly not happy with what he saw in that first quarter, and you can understand it.
Michael's got a question on the text line. Says, what has happened to Sydney? They're not even competitive anymore, so they lost 4 of their last 5 heading into this game, Kirsty, and they haven't turned up tonight.
No, they haven't. And looking at some of the stats, Josh and I have pretty much written down exactly the same stats. Contested possession, 41-17 Powers way. Inside forward 50, 20-5. Clearances, 13-17. But for me, ground ball gets 27-9. That just tells me that they're not up for the fight. When the ball leaves a stoppage, 9 times out of 10 it's on the deck, and if you're not prepared to get your hands dirty and get those ground balls, then it's going to be a really long night for Sydney, I think.
Absolutely, and the couple of things I've written down, Port Adelaide's quarter was unbelievable, and you don't say this too often. Sydney were embarrassing, and it's an indictment on how they're playing currently, almost to the point they've got to activate Luke Parker to get some hit around the footy instead of sitting there as the sub.
Port by 45. Grundy taps it down in the middle to start the second quarter. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. And we'll get a quick ball up after a couple of tackles. Over at the MCG, second term underway there. Scores level at 14 apiece between the Pies and the Blues. Sweet taps it down, hits up Drew for the power. Off a step, looks to get the clearance. Up to Rioli, entangled with Cunningham. Knocked down towards Horne-Francis, stood up in the Roberts tackle. Gives it to Dixon, who releases Burne-Jones. Racing towards goal. He slots it from 30. Port Adelaide are unstoppable right now. 8 unanswered goals. The Swans yet to hit the scoreboard. 8-3, 51-0. Opening minute of the second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
Well, it's interesting, and I think we've probably all been maybe not in this situation, but similar situations where nothing you do is things aren't just happening. And I guess in the end, to your point, what you just said then, Kirsty, is that you've got to start to get back to the foundation and start winning the contested ball, rolling your sleeve up. And if the current midfield group aren't doing it, you've got to try to get people in there that can. So, you know, even the Callum Mills, I just mentioned, get Luke Parker, inject him into the game somehow. He's sitting on the bench, warming the bench. He's the sub, he can't play. Get him involved in the game somehow, just so they can get their hands on the footy and stop the momentum that Port Adelaide currently have.
So, Sydney haven't won a game by under 12 points. It's been big wins all the way this season. Four of its 5 losses this season are by under 6 points. I think the largest margin was a 37-point. That was a blowout at that stage. And yet tonight they find themselves incredibly 51 points down, and we're barely 2 minutes into the second term.
And haven't scored.
Yep.
Unheard of.
Yep. And there's a review on the goal too. I think that's what's holding things up. It's normally just the TV ad break, the 45 seconds between the goal, and they're looking closely, and this was just inside the right goal post, and finally it's been given the all clear. Nothing obviously on edge technology, so away we go. And out of the middle, Rowbottom puts his head down, was surely taken high, and the umpire said yes. So he'll take the free kick. Swans want to move it. Anything to get inside the forward line. It's off to Roberts by hand, and then Roberts inside forward 50. Aaliyah with a big punch. And tackle made was on Lloyd as he tried to force his way through two power players without success. Now it's come down to Boak. Flick the hand pass back to Houston. Clears the area. It will come back as McCartan takes the intercept mark for Sydney.
Hands it off quickly to Lloyd, close to the boundary line. Centering kick, rising up. McLean knocked it down front square lines for the power. Hands it to Farrell, rocketing with their delivery as they chain to Butters. Then back to Houston. A little bit too hot for him in the end. Wicks under pressure, forced him to cough it up. Boak is there though. And quickly sends it up down the wing. Radagolea rising above the pack, but unfortunately there's a free kick amongst it. It was a great contested mark. But the ball will be handed to McCartan, who uses it to Roberts. Casual with his squaring kick to Mills, and racing forward, Georgiades cuts it off, snatches it out of play, into the 50 to Burne-Jones. Back with the flight, Roberts got a hand in. Burne-Jones keeps fighting, hands it to Horne-Francis. Excellent vision. Pops it to the left forward pocket to Burgoyne. Could have blown off his teammates and gone for goal, but unselfishly shares it on the tight angle to Burgoyne.
I'll tell you what, the spoil for Matty Roberts from Sydney was outstanding. I think it was Burne-Jones that was in the box seat. He didn't give away the free kick, but just through weight of numbers and great composure there from, was that Horne-Francis that kicked it to Burgoyne? Outstanding vision, didn't blaze away, superb play.
Jace Burgoyne snaps from 20 and joins the party. We've got 8 individual goal scorers at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide have 9 unanswered majors. 9-3-57. Sydney still yet to score. 4.5 played in the second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Score check at the G. Collingwood lead Carlton by 3. And in the Super Netball Grand Final, a minute to play in the third quarter. 1 goal separates Adelaide and Melbourne, with the Thunderbirds up, looking to go back to back.
Port looks so dangerous when they're prepared to take the ball through the corridor. At times it comes unstuck and it hurts you on the way back, but Sydney just haven't been good enough tonight to stop them, particularly when they're prepared to take it on through the middle, and every time they do, they seem to score from it.
Saying what's happening here.
Well, Sydney got their numbers wrong, and so they had a player And what do we got here?
Score review.
It's a score review.
Yeah, it's interesting. When Burgoyne kicked that, one of the Sydney players, one of their Sydney defenders, said that they touched off the boot, so it must have been.
Well, I thought it actually came off the post when I had immediately a look at a review. And now the umpires are saying, okay, letter of the law is they're trying to take the kick in quickly is Blakey, but instead umpires insisting that the ball they're bringing from the middle had to go to Blakey, who now goes long from defence, and it goes over the top of the two contesting players, and sitting there was Drew, who took it inside the centre square and send Port Adelaide long and deep again, and Dixon comes to the front, no mark. Goulden got a slipper into the ball towards the boundary line. Jones will come across, tries to push off the approaching tackler without success, but he steps over the line, and it'll be thrown in just outside attacking 50 for Port Adelaide.
How's this text from Peter in Blair Athol, who says, my mate Wazza wants to know what to do with his Sack Hinkley sign that he smuggled into the Adelaide Oval. Can't find a bin to stash it in. Port by 52 out of the stoppage. Quick kick forward. Takes a bounce and over the line. Was off the boots of Sydney, which is why you hear the Bronx cheers. We'll get a boundary throw in through centre wing. Broadcast side. What a start it's been for the Power. John Longmire searching for answers. Grundy taps it down, only found Drew. Skied it towards the centre square. Houston, courageous underneath it. Had to get away from Wicks. Takes the mark. Will slow things down as everybody floods forward. Kicking to the Riverbank stand end or the right-hand side of your radio dial. Houston dinks it to Drew. Attacking edge of the square. And can share it with Bergman. Just no pressure right now as they comfortably work their way through the traffic. Bergman at right half forward, spots Radonolea, sends it in his direction. Good fly from Roberts. Got over the top to cut it off for the Swans and wants to move it quick as he chips it to Goulden, running through left half back.
Goulden down the line towards McLean, who kept it in just beside the boundary line, and eventually it goes over though, just ahead of the four Swans players standing up in the interchange gates waiting to come onto the ground. Swans maybe they need a few extras on the ground to cope with what's happening. It's like it's a old-fashioned under-15 game where one side is at the top and the other at the bottom, and they're getting trounced, and that's what's happening with Sydney. Only trouble is Sydney's at the top of the AFL ladder and they can't get a kick at the moment.
Crossy, are there any stats for the longest time it's taken to actually score?
Let me have a look for you, Josh.
Yeah.
It depends how far back you go. I reckon back in the muddy days of the early part of last century, there might have been a few games that took a long while to get a score, but post-war, let's say that period, good luck. Keep at it, Aaron.
The boundary throw-in didn't amount to much, so we'll try again. Port by 52. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Toss back in. Laddams gets the double tap down uncontested as Sweet was a bit lost on the drop. Hits the deck. Chad Warner couldn't get it. On Francis with a couple of boots in. Tried to tow it out. Laddams becomes the tackler along with Goulden on Farrell, and there's a very late high tackle free kick. It was there. Mead pops up with the footy.
Yeah, it was the umpire off the ball in the middle of the ground that saw the high tackle on Mead. As you said, definitely there.
So Mead sends Port Adelaide inside 50. Another entry. Radonolea crunches the pack. It collapses. Wine standing in front of it. Tried to go for goal. Didn't make enough of a connection. 5 metres. It finds its way to Goulden. Getting it out of there quickly with the panic kick. McLean crunched Heaney, who was sitting underneath the drop. And then flooding on top of the footy is a couple of power players to hold it up. Ball up. Centre half forward for Port. Up by 52.
Off the ruck contest, Heaney with a slick hand pass quickly to Goulden, clears the area back towards centre wing. McLean coming across and fumbled it right on the boundary line, and Houston gave him one to go on with as well. Port Adelaide up and about. Boy, that's an understatement. When you're 8-4-52 to no score early in the second term against what I think everybody thought was the premiership favourite for maybe 15 rounds of the competition. It's outstanding. So ball off the ruck contest, just dribbled forward for Sydney. No free kick coming from that. We'll get another ball up. It's between the logo on centre wing and half forward for Sydney, attacking that cathedral end of the Adelaide Oval. Off hands Goulden, long hand pass wide towards the boundary area where Adams was. Slipped it to Chad Warner, high inside 50. And coming and meeting it was McDonald. He dropped it at the last second. Play on, called the umpire. Rosie just towed the ball to Butters. Inside the centre square. Off to Logan Evans. Outside of the foot to centre half forward. McCartan picks it up. Run down by Dixon. Turnover. Hands. And then it goes to Burn Jones, who drops it in short. Georgiades with the lead up. And Port Adelaide again feasting on the mistakes of Sydney under pressure.
Look even further to what you said, Crossy, just before about their form early in the season. I remember watching them on the telly and they looked unstoppable. And they haven't lost their ability. They're just absolutely devoid of confidence at the moment. The Swans, they can't get their hands on the ball. Fumbly, bumbly. Taylor Adams, who's normally clean, fumbling the footy, and Port Adelaide on that occasion on the turnover capitalising.
For his third goal before half-time, Georgiades in. And he has 3. Port Adelaide has 9. No doubt about that score. Port Adelaide 9-4, 58. Sydney donuts. Unbelievable scoreline at the Adelaide Oval. Your experts to tell us how this has come about. Josh Franco and Kirsty Lamb.
You can see the contest at the moment. The Swans are trying to stem the flow. They've thrown extra numbers around the ball to try and make it really congested and not allow Port to get easy access outside of the stoppages. But it just takes a quick kick off the ground or a little ball into space and Port sweat all over it. And they've got more numbers leaving the stoppages and surging that ball forward. And again, it's just a clever play. Burn Jones probably could have slotted that himself if he wanted to, but unselfishly hit up Georgiades.
Port by 58 points. In the middle, tap down the way of Heaney, who hands it to Chad Warner.
Goodness.
Too casual with his exit and bowled over by Burn Jones. Picked up by Butters into the 50. Direct kick to Rioli. Turnover footy at its best, and they get stuck into Chad Warner for it. Everything's going wrong.
And even that bit of play there, just the lack of awareness of the speed of the game and the speed with which Port Adelaide are closing it, almost in slow motion there. And again, the quick turnover, good luck defending Rioli one-on-one with speed on the ball.
Willa Rioli, set shot, man on the mark, 25 out. 45-degree angle to the left. Rioli comes in, cheers as he kicks it. They knew where it was going. Rioli's got 2. The bloodbath continues. Port Adelaide 10-4-64. Sydney yet to score. I've hit the record books, Josh. 10 teams in the history of the game have gone scoreless in a half.
Oh, no.
Sydney may be headed to becoming the 11th. Josh Franco, Kirsty Lamb, your experts just quickly at the MCG. Collingwood lead Carlton by 4. And the final quarter underway in the Super Netball Grand Final, and the Thunderbirds lead the Vixens by 3 goals.
Well, the other thing I will say as well is, I mean, it's 10 goals for, 64-0. Game's done and dusted in terms of can Sydney get back in this. It'd absolutely take a miracle. You've got Luke Parker, who's one of the greatest contested ball winners of all time, sitting on the bench in his warm-up jacket. Activate him and get him and inject him into the contest.
Dixon with the tap down out of the middle. Rosie just easily gets possession of the ball, breaks through, steps to his left, hand passes off to Wines, inside 50, ball off hands. Evans just knocks it forward, and with the outside of the right boot, Mead finds Rioli, top of the square, and he'll kick his 3rd goal. It's just a matter of taking his time and wandering back.
Well, they're absolutely taking the mickey at the moment, Port Adelaide. Kicking them off the outside of their boot, everything, doing as they please.
Rioli with his 3rd. It's an absolute massacre here at the Adelaide Oval. Nobody saw this coming. We thought Port Adelaide had found its mojo, but the Swans at the top of the ladder, they are collapsing unbelievably. 14 minutes, second term. That's right, if you're at home listening, turned on for the first time. Just 14 minutes into the second term, Port Adelaide 11-4-70. Sydney yet to score.
I can't remember a time where I've seen Port Adelaide play this selfless. Every time that a player picks up the footy, they're just running in numbers. They're working very well together as a team. Up forward, they're hitting short 15-metre kicks instead of taking it on themselves. This is a really selfless but a really good team effort so far.
And Callum Mills on ball for the Swans.
70 points the lead. Tap down. Row bottom over around the footy. Here they come again. Horn Francis arches the back for the power. Puts it in the path of Mead. Turning it right half forward. Evans will chisel it, looking for Georgiadis. It's a little wide. Takes a bounce over the boundary line. Will be tossed back in front of the Riverbank stand end. 70 points to nothing. Unbelievable footy. Port Adelaide's largest ever win over the Swans is 72. We could match it by half time. Tossed in, Dixon taps it down. Burgoyne over his head for something special. It's a wobbler that's through for a minor score on the right-hand side. 71 points. 11-5, 71 to nothing. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. The Swans go up the corridor.
Sounds like you're calling darts, Aaron. 71 points. And do we hear any more? Swans have got a free kick at the back end of the centre square. And it'll be Mills who drives it forward and long. And McLean with the mark, and he backs off sideways, not called a play on. Inside 50 with a kick. Sat it up just a bit high. There'll be a free kick come to Hayward. It will be a free kick. He was taken a little high, said the umpire. So from 45 out, Hayward will have a chance to shoot at goal. He's got a problem with his right boot at the moment. So you think probably the entire Swans outfit have a problem with their right boot and their left boot.
Yep.
And their handball and their contest in this game.
Well, he should score from here, surely, Hayward. Not looking to pass off, but he'll kick from probably 50 metres, so he's definitely got the journey.
So in he comes. How about the raucous boos? They don't want him to score. It's not going to score. It's high and it's rushed through. And the Swans have finally put one on the board. And it's taken a rush behind to do it. Let's go down to Josh Money on the boundary.
Excuse me while I try and get over the Bronx cheers after that final behind. But Luke Parker has heard the calls of Josh Franco. The Guernsey is on and he looks ready to be injected into the game. Not yet clear who the Swan sub will be.
Port back up the spine looking for Aaliyah. Couldn't take it in the congestion rather. Hit the deck. Gordon inside 50 was looking for Laddams. Diving mark couldn't reel it in. Burgoyne hands it back to Farrell, who races away from Gordon with ease. Chips it over the top to Horn Francis. Tried to squeeze it down the line but has kicked it out on the full. Getting a bit overconfident, the Power here. Up by 70.
Well, unfortunately, the Luke Parker move, I think it's about 5 goals too late.
Took a quarter and 17 minutes for the Swans to hit the scoreboard, and it was through a rushed behind.
I think Sweet hit the ball and the Port supporters booed him. I think it's what the Bronx cheers were.
Fox up to Jordan, attacking edge of the square on the broadcast side. Another entry incoming for Sydney. Bangs it to the top of the goal square. Lear in a wrestle there. Frees up Logan Evans to float across and take the intercept mark.
He can play, this kid.
Out of the Norwood Football Club. Port Adelaide had him playing in the SANFL and then got him in the mid-season draft. His kick, though, intercepted by Goulden. Inside 50, Port Adelaide intercept themselves, get the ball away again. Through the hands, drew forward, went to Mead, then to Horn Francis. Slipped a forward hand pass, couldn't find his man. It's at the front end of the centre square for Port Adelaide, though. More pressure on the ball carrier. Well done by Port. Yet again, Sweet was in there and made a tough tackle. And the big ruckman forces a ball up. And he engages with Grundy now, gets him away from the ball. But Grundy comes, takes the ball, kicks it down the ground to centre half forward. McLean in a battle, and it'll be a free kick against him. Sydney gives it up. Aaliyah will take the free kick for Port Adelaide at centre half back.
Game 150 against his old mob where he played 64 games. Aaliyah will be delighted with this start. To the outer side he goes. Kick was a bit off. Knee went to ground against Roberts. And the intercept mark goes the way of the South Australian Swan. Up to right half forward. He's looking for McLean. Aaliyah makes amends with a big fist from behind. Ricochets out to Corey Warner. And a holding free kick's going Port Adelaide's way to Willem Drew. Mills took him down. And on the 45, he pops it into the square to Horn Francis. Copped a heavy hit from Hayward for his troubles, but takes the mark. Shares it with Rosie. Wanted to hand it back to him running by, and in the end just booms it Long kick from the skipper, floating up sweet, nearly took it overhead of McCartan. Hits the deck and set upon his row bottom by 3 power forwards. They're up by 70 over the Swans, and we've still got 8 to play in the second term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
And the footy's fun again if you're a Port player, or if you're a Power fan, that's for sure. Off the ruck contest, Hayward came through, tried to beat a couple. He smuggled a hand pass out. The Warner boys combine, and then it's out to centre wing. McLean with the mark from Chad Warner's disposal. Takes his time out on the eastern wing. Crowd wants him to play on. Umpire wants him to play on, and so he does. Kicks long down the line. Comes off fist of Laddams down to row bottom. Inside forward 50 for the Swans. Burgoyne comes across. Lost the ball. Towed accidentally towards the line by Wicks, and out in the scoreboard pocket, that's the old scoreboard, still tells a very, very sad tale for Sydney. We're going to get a throw in.
How's this on the text line? One listener says, if the Swannies were horses, you'd want a swab done. Oh. Not doing well. Down by 70. Tossed in. Laddams, beautiful tap. Hit up Heaney, kicks for goal, misses. 2 consecutive behinds to Port Adelaide's 11-5-71. Time on in the second. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross with you. Your experts, Premiership Bulldog, Kirsty Lamb, All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco. At the G, it's Collingwood by 9 over the Blues as they close in on half-time. And the Thunderbirds pushing away in the grand final quarter, and they're up by 5 over the Vixens.
Barrel with the big long kick in. It's dropped by Rioli, but picked up and kicked forward, and it's found in space. Horne-Francis chips it over the back, and just coming and knocking it through Francis. He didn't quite hit Georgiades, who was breaking to the top of the goal square. Just missed him. Francis came in, knocked it through for a rush behind. Margin 70 points as we'll check in with Josh Money.
Yeah, so Luke Parker is into the game. It's Corey Warner, who's had just the 3 disposals, who's been given the role on the back bench.
Straight down the spine go the Swans again. Zerk Thatcher cut it off. Now Dixon to Butters. Composed with his entry. And a bit off more than he could chew as he tried the outside of the boot into the 50 looking for Rosie and only found Roberts. He's looked good.
Yeah, he has. And I reckon Sydney have looked a little bit more composed in the last 5 or 6 minutes, statistically supporting that, but they've still got to try to hit the scoreboard at the moment, not looking threatening at all.
Roberts fresh off a career-high 36 as the Swans look to go end-to-end. Through the middle they go. Target was McLean. Brought it down to Heaney. Open goal square. He'll roll it through from 40. And the Swans have the last 3 of the last 4 scoring opportunities. And they finally have their first goal of the night. Comes at the 23-minute mark of the second term through Isaac Heaney. Sydney 1-8. Port Adelaide 11-6-72. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, All-Australian midfielders Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco.
That goal came off the back of Nick Blakey being prepared to run from behind and carry the footy through the middle, and that's something that we've seen him do for years now, and he just hasn't had the ability to do it tonight. And so he's such a crucial player for Sydney. If they can use him off the halfback flank and get the ball in deep, they're a chance of scoring, but he's going with just the 4 disposals at the moment. So someone like Nick Blakey needs to get his hands on the footy, because when he does, he hurts you on the other end.
Heaney, one of the favourites for the Brownlow medal, he's up there. He's averaged over 25 possessions in away games this season. He's not averaging that or anywhere near that at the moment. So the ruck contest, and from half back, it'll be cleared by Sydney. Jordan goes back with a hand pass to Goulden, who is running near the boundary line. He goes backwards looking for Cunningham, and he turns it over almost. Cunningham goes and picks it up. Inside defensive 50, immediately swamped by Rioli. Still it's play on. Ball on the ground near the boundary line, and Georgiades taken over the line in the tackle there by Francis.
And even there, Goulden normally superb by foot, admittedly on his opposite leg, on his right leg, but just missed the target by 4 or 5 metres.
Toss back into play. Sweet. Battling with Grundy, tapped it straight down to Horne-Francis, racing by, ran out of room, bouncing off Mills, and the ball shoots out towards the boundary line in front of the Riverbank stand. Port by 64. Scoring getting tighter in the Super Netball Grand Final. Thunderbirds by 3 with 3 minutes to play. And Collingwood currently leading Carlton over at the MCG by 8 as it's tossed back into play. Grundy wins it down and becomes the tackler on Horn Francis. So at 15 out from goal, Port's 50. Up 11 goals to 1 in this second quarter. Sweet down, straight to Wines, tried to hand it to Georgiadis. Wasn't ready for it, had 2 to beat and knocks it back over the boundary line.
So it'll come in. Another opportunity to add to a brilliant opening half. Although Sydney has been challenging more recently. Grundy takes it out of the contest. Drew intercepts the hand pass though off the Horn Francis and just across the goal face for the minus score. We've hit 26 minutes in the second term and 11-7 to 1-2-8. 11-7 on the board for Port Adelaide.
So out of defensive 50 go the Swans. Fox hit and hope and only found Zirk Thatcher. Laddam's caught behind, frustrated with the... And the former Bomber now in teal, sends Port inside 50, lace out to Georgiadis. How did he have so much room? Got away from Francis comfortably. Takes it out in front, 25 outside angle to the right.
Well, again, that's that three-quarter kick that Port Adelaide love, and they would have scouted that. They would have known that that's the kick when they're 70 metres out. They're not trying to hit the top of the goal square. It's just that little 7-iron into space and allow their forwards to run onto it and take, on that occasion, through Georgiades, just an uncontested mark. That's not good enough. And then even looking at Sydney, arguing against one another, not happy with what they're doing at the moment. It's just all falling apart for the Swans.
A career best season for Mitch Georgiadis. He's got 4 in the opening half. Perfect kick for Port's perfect half. 12-7-79 to the Swans 1-2-8. 27 played as we close in on half-time. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco with you.
Port Adelaide at the moment are just so determined to make the Swans pay at every opportunity that they get. And Mitch Georgiades as well, isn't he playing a fine game tonight, hitting the scoreboard regularly? And this is probably close to the best we've seen Port Adelaide kick set shots as well. It's been something they've really struggled with all year, but they're going really well tonight with their set shot goals. So there's certainly something that they're doing in between games and working on their accuracy.
So back to the netball quickly for the margin, and they've just turned the ball over the Vixen. So Adelaide with a 4-goal lead and just under 60 seconds on the clock. So out of the middle, Port Adelaide go forward again. Nothing changes here. It's one-way traffic. Georgiades in the right forward pocket, left forward pocket in fact, unable to take the ball. So eastern side of the ground, throw in to come. About 40 metres around from the goal face.
Standing ovation at the entertainment centre. They know what's coming. 4-goal lead for the Thunderbirds. Under 20 seconds to play. Toss back in. Port's 50. Sweet. Put it in the path of Horn Francis. Tucks it under one arm. Tight angle. Wants to square it. Unselfishly could have gone for home. Cleared his target. Spills to the back. Dixon bowls over McCartan. Knocked out of there towards the arc of 50 and towed by Adams. Accidentally over the line. He's been pinged for deliberate. So unfortunate. His momentum just carried it over. Farrell wants to bang it back in. He's looking for Georgiadis, the launch. Pack crumpled. He hits the deck. Rolls to the goal line. Sweet can tow it through. A calamity of errors from the Swans. They had 3 defenders and no one wanted to pick it up. And Sweet said, thank you very much. Jordan Sweet has his first for the night. Port Adelaide's 13th. 13-7-85 to the Swans 1-2-8. Full time in the Super Netball Grand Final, and the Adelaide Thunderbirds have gone back to back. They've won by 2 goals, 59-57.
Well, you talked about a calamity of errors. I thought originally it might have been paid against Georgiades with an unrealistic attempt at the mark, and then looking at the replay, Laddams, just no composure The intercept from Sweden. Once again, it's just all unravelling for the Swannies here at Adelaide Oval tonight.
Well, I guess on the positive side, for Swans, you'd say at least it's not a final that they're going through at the moment. They're getting hammered out of the middle. First possession to the Swans, but it's shut down immediately by Port Adelaide before it escapes the centre square.
Just thinking as well, what do you say to them at half time if you're John Longmire?
Not sure there's much you can say
No,
at the
there's
moment.
not, is there?
I'll tell you a story from football in Brisbane in my youth in a moment as the Swans go forward. Off the ruck contest again. Run down tackle. Adams thought he was away. Farrell got him. So just outside defensive 50 for Port Adelaide. Wide they go. Off to Rosie. I remember there was a legend, and I think it might have been Arch Wilkie, who was the coach of Western Districts in Brisbane. And his side was getting thrashed at half time, and he ordered all his players to take off their Guernseys and have a shower and get restrapped and everything and go out and play the second half. And they turned it around. I don't think the scoreline was anything like this, though. So Port Adelaide chipping out of defence, keeping it wide at the moment. Butters there, out on the eastern wing. Down the line he goes. Lead up by Wines. He takes the mark within maybe 4 or 5 metres of the boundary line. Now he arcs around on the right foot, goes inside half forward, and Charlie Dixon got under the ball and allowed Blakey to take the mark. He goes straight across in front of the goals to Florent.
Florent, top of the defensive goal square. Calls for some leads. Finally gets one from Jordan. Had to be pinpoint to left half back because closing was Lockie Jones. Got a fist in. Spilled to Burgoyne. He'll hand it to Houston. Hooking it back into the 50. Georgiadis late with the spoil. Freed up Butters. Front and square. Off a step towards goal. Needs a kind bounce. Won't get it. It rolls through for the minor score on the left-hand side. Port by 78 as we close in on half-time. And it's just repeating, the Thunderbirds have won the Suncorp Super Netball Grand Final. They've gone back-to-back as Sydney look to go end-to-end.
Blakey with the ball, got it to centre half forward. Fumble by McDonald, but he did take the mark. Had options, decided against a hand pass. Now he's got nobody deep, so he has to go wide with his kick. He goes very wide to Hayward, picks it up just inside the boundary, dinks a kick inside forward 50, misses Heaney. Jones came across and took the intercept mark. In game number 50, steadies up, goes defensively back to the goal square, in fact. And sitting back there is Houston, just calls for a bit of calm. 32 minutes down in this second term, and Port well up.
Does percentage potentially hurt Sydney? I mean, I don't follow the ladder.
Brisbane have a draw, so I don't think it does.
Okay.
They're a game and a half.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the exit from Port Adelaide wasn't clean, so Houston was trying to pick off a target at left half back, and it's cut off by Peter Laddams, his old teammate. So set shot to come, 45 outside angle to the right. So yeah, Sydney game and half ahead of Brisbane and Fremantle, so percentage won't matter too much, but it's incredibly important for Port Adelaide, who are currently locked alongside Geelong, the Giants, Carlton and Footscray. Peter Laddams takes a step inside, and off a step, or a couple, just bangs it long. A monster kick, really, considering the lack of momentum. Drops a little short on the goal line and knocked through for the minor score. Sydney won 3-9, Port 13-8, 86. What a remarkable half of footy it's been from the Port Adelaide Footy Club. It was always going to be a blockbuster fixture between these two top 8 sides. But no one expected it to be this one-sided. Fresh off a victory over Carlton, Port has piled 13 goals on the Swans in the opening half here at the Adelaide Oval. They lead by 78 points over Sydney. If they can continue this trend, it'll be their biggest ever victory over the Swans. What an incredible half of footy we're seeing. 13-8, 86 to 139, so 77 points the margin. Goals at the major break, 4 to Mitch Georgiadis, who's looking to best his career best 5 from earlier in the season. Willie Rioli has 3 singles to Rosie, Horne-Francis, Dixon, Sweet, Francis Evans and Burn Jones. And the only goal scorer for the Swans is Isaac Heaney. John Longmire will be searching for answers as they head down into the rooms. Over at the MCG, Collingwood leads Carlton 6-42 to 3-11-29. The Blues kicked 8 behinds to start the game and are now 3-11 and trailing at half-time. So inaccuracy plaguing them, and repeating once again that the Adelaide Thunderbirds have won the Super Netball Grand Final by 2 goals going back-to-back, 59 to 57. They're just about to announce the MVP, I reckon, and can tell you with the candidates. Romelda Aiken-George shot 42 from 51 but had 10 rebounds. Doesn't look like it was as defensive of a game as we anticipated. There weren't a lot of gains, mainly just, I guess, the continued forward effort from the Thunderbirds, who shot plenty more opportunities than the Vixens. So they had 69 shots to the Vixens' 48 rather. So in the end, it was just the amount of entries that kind of got them over the line. And Georgie Horgis had 7 of 8 shooting, but also 12 goal assists as she rotated through the middle. So likely to be one of those two, I reckon, that wins your MVP. Meanwhile, here at the Adelaide Oval, Neil Cross, Aaron Bryans with you, and your experts to break down an emphatic half by the Port Adelaide Footy Club. Their own midfielder gearing up for the AFLW, and Kirsty Lamb and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco.
Well, I don't know what to say, Kirsty and Crossy and Aaron. I'm just looking at some of the numbers, and it's actually mind-blowing. Again, to put a bit of context for our listeners, so disposal count, this is to half-time. Port Adelaide are plus 47, the inside 50s, Port Adelaide plus 24. Contested possessions plus 27, the ground ball gets plus 20, and the clearance count, Port Adelaide plus 10. The only statistic that's probably worth noting that Sydney are leading, as you would imagine, is the tackle count, whether it's 38 to 29, and it's been an absolute or complete demolition and totally dismantling the way that Sydney want to play. And when looking at Port Adelaide and coming into this game, we talked about how important it was for both footy clubs, and in the context of the season, I must admit I didn't expect this. And Sydney obviously have been a little bit shaky. They had a couple of close losses leading in. They were poor last week against the Western Bulldogs, and I must admit, as I said, having spent 4 years at the Swans and knowing how John Longmire demands and the leaders demand the way they play, this is so far from the Sydney Swans that I know and that we've seen early in the season. It's not funny. But I guess conversely, and on the other side of the coin, it's Port Adelaide are just playing an absolutely magnificent brand of footy, Kirsty.
Yeah, they are, and echo some of your comments that I don't think anybody would have expected this Sydney Swans to turn up tonight. Obviously, coming off the back of a few losses, you'd expect there to be a fair bit of hunger within that playing group to want to get back on the winnings list, but just playing some good football, and that certainly hasn't been the case tonight. Port Adelaide have dominated from the very first bounce, and they have not looked like taking the foot off the pedal at all, certainly in the first half of football. So, yeah, I think obviously for Sydney, they need to go back to the drawing board and go back to the fundamentals, which we spoke about at the start of the game when we talked about what do they need to do to get back on that winners list, and it's back to basic fundamentals of football. They're certainly not winning a lot of the contested possession. They're not winning clearances or around the ground stoppages. They just seem to be lacking some effort and hunger to want to put their head over the football. And Port Adelaide have got all things working in their favour at the moment, and a lot of their midfielders, we saw a few weeks ago Ken Hinkley gave Port Adelaide midfielders a fair spray, because they are an elite midfield, and if they want to play good football come finals time, then they need their midfield working well together. And this is probably the best I've seen the midfield work in a number of weeks now, and that gives them a huge amount of belief, huge amount of confidence as they come towards the back half of the season.
Well, it's interesting you say that too, Kirsty, and I know you can't look purely at statistics, but you look at Port Adelaide and the numbers that their midfielders are producing. So Willem Drew, the leading possession win on the ground, he's at 18. Horn Francis, 17. Butters, Wines, Rosie, all in the teens. And if you look at Sydney, their prime movers in Warner, just the 9 disposals. Heaney's had 10. He's obviously, or admittedly, he kicked that goal, and that's the only goal in that second quarter. Adams has only had 6 disposals. Rowbottom, who has been playing good footy in the first half of the season, he's only had 7 touches. So not enough of their prime movers getting hold of the footy. And as I said, conversely, Port Adelaide midfield, it's been an absolute domination. And as I said, I must have been a little bit speechless around where Sydney go from here and what the message is. I mean, we heard Josh Money on the boundary say that John Longmire was very animated at quarter time, and no doubt he would have been, sending a few expletives the players' way in terms of their effort and what they were producing. But I mean, you can't keep doing that. So I must admit, I don't know what sort of angle that John Longmire and his coaching staff come at us. Is it, you know what, we just maybe set a mini goal in this third quarter, try to outscore Port Adelaide, because the game's done and dusted in terms of win-loss, but they've got to get some respectability back in their game.
I was trying to be optimistic coming into this fixture that the Swans had lost 4 of their last 5, and you actually look back at the last few premiers. So Collingwood last year, not so much the year before with Geelong, but around that, Melbourne, Richmond, and who was around that West Coast as well in 2018. They all went through losing streaks in the back half of the season after being really dominant early, and eventually they bounced back and won a flag. I think at some point you do need to be pushed a little bit, which kind of takes you to that next level. But this isn't funny anymore, is it? It's almost like we've learnt how to unravel Sydney, but they've never been able to figure out a way to get back over the top of it. Teams are starting to expose them through, I guess, that frontal pressure and forcing them to pick off dangerous kicks, and all of a sudden they're down by 77 points, and it looks like, albeit, I mean, we've still got 3 rounds to go, and depending on how Brisbane go this weekend, they're probably still going to finish top 2. But, gee, the confidence is dwindling away.
Yeah, and I reckon that's the key word, the confidence. And I think, Crossy, you mentioned that their winning margin has... What was their winning margin? Sydney, was it?
They have not... they've not won a game by under 10 points or 12 points.
Yeah.
But 4 of the 5 losses were by under 6.
Under 6, yeah. And so, I think in the end, if you're really dominant, which Sydney have been, and again, all the talk has been how Sydney are basically going to win the premiership, or they're the hot favourites. All of a sudden, you start to lose a few games, albeit by small margins. They had a real downer last week against the Bulldogs. Their confidence takes a massive dent. But I guess the flip side of that is Port Adelaide coming to this game think, we're right in this contest in terms of we're up against Sydney, we're on our home deck. Sydney's devoid of confidence, and at the moment, as you said, they're 3 games away from a final series, and they can't afford to take too many more hits to their confidence.
It's the longest season ever as well, so 25 rounds. Heard Jack Rewalt speak through the week about 2019 when Richmond peaked too early, and they said that they fell short because they'd kind of jumped the gun in a sense, and maybe Sydney have done that to start 13-1 and starting to fall short at season's end. So there's a lot to unpack here, and we've got a whole half of footy still to come. It's Port Adelaide by 77 points, 13,886 to Sydney's 139. We'll give you some more details on the Super Netball Grand Final and what's happening at the MCG in a moment. And a shout out to Tim in Copenhagen, who's texted in saying, thank goodness for ABC Sport. I'm an expat and I'm unable to watch the game overseas. Can't see Port Adelaide's demolition of Sydney, but a big thanks to the ABC that I can hear it. So big thanks to you, Tim, for tuning in, and hope you're enjoying your time in Copenhagen. That would be quite fun at this time of year. There's plenty happening, so if you do want to get in touch, 0437 774 774 is the text line. On ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app. Great to have you with us for Saturday Night Footy on ABC Sport. Plenty still to come, but for now, let's get the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
Tim Wharton with ABC News. The Northern Territory Police Commissioner has committed to eliminating racism in the force in an historic speech at the Garma Festival. Lillian Rangina has more.
Commissioner Michael Murphy used his Garma Festival address at the Gulkula Yungal Ceremonial Ground in northeast Arnhem Land to apologise to Indigenous Territorians for past injustices committed by members of the force.
Alongside with our police officers, we can commit to not repeat mistakes and injustices of the past.
For months, acts of racism in the force revealed at the inquest into the police shooting of Kumanjai Walker have strained relations between police and Indigenous Territorians. Commissioner Murphy says he's committed to eliminating all forms of racism in the NT Police through a new anti-racism strategy.
The campaign manager for the Yes vote in last year's Voice referendum is seeking more clarity from the Prime Minister on his commitment to the Uluru Statement from the Heart. More from Indigenous Affairs reporter Brooke Fryer at the Gulkula Ceremonial Ground in northeast Arnhem Land.
At the Garma Festival today, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese reaffirmed his government's commitment to the concept of Makarrata, a Yolngu word that means coming together after a struggle. The former director of the Yes campaign, Dean Parkin, would like to know precisely what the Prime Minister means.
There is a distinction that has emerged and I think we need to just take a closer look at, which is commitment to Makarrata versus commitment to a Makarrata commission.
He said such a commission would oversee a truth-telling process for First Nations communities.
Police are investigating what they describe as a targeted shooting which killed a man in Melbourne on Friday night. Alex Alvaro reports.
Neighbours we've spoken to here on Tenterfield Drive say they're surprised this incident happened in such a quiet area. Police were called to this street in Burnside Heights in Melbourne's northwest around 9 p.m. last night following reports of a man with a gunshot wound. A 34-year-old man from Wallen died at the scene. Police say they don't believe this was a random attack and they're continuing to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death. There were detectives on scene interviewing neighbours, and police earlier examined a car with multiple bullet holes in its windscreen. Police have told anyone who knows anything to get in touch.
US Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump will go head-to-head in a televised debate next month. Larry Buttrose has the details.
The Democrat and Republican contenders for the White House will take part in an arena-style debate on September the 4th. The last debate between President Joe Biden and Mr. Trump proved disastrous for the Democrat incumbent, and Mr. Biden withdrew from the race last month, anointing his deputy, Ms. Harris. She agreed to the debate request from Fox News last month, and Mr. Trump has now agreed after confirmation she has enough delegates to secure her party's nomination. An averaged opinion poll puts the pair too close to call, but the latest major poll has Ms. Harris 5 points ahead of Mr. Trump.
In Olympic action in swimming, Australia's Shayna Jack and Meg Harris are through to the semi-finals of the women's 50-metre freestyle on day 8 at the Paris Games. In rowing, the Australian men's 8 has finished 6th in a final, while Australia's women's 8 has finished 4th in their final. In athletics, Australia's Abby Caldwell is into the semi-finals of the women's 800 metres, and in beach volleyball, the Australian pair of Tom Hodges and Zach Schubert have beaten France 21-16 and 22-20. In rugby league, Brisbane coach Kevin Walters has pledged to fix his side's problems over the remaining games of the season, despite being out of finals contention following a huge loss to the Gold Coast. The Broncos' slim hopes were dashed after they were thrashed 46-18 by the Titans, with the Gold Coast running in 7 unanswered tries in the second half. Adding to Brisbane's woes, star prop Payne Haas and 5'8" Ezra Mam look set to be sidelined with serious injuries. Walters has refused to use that as an excuse and says he'll address his side's lack of fight over the remaining games of the season.
We've still got, 5 games to go. They will endeavour to fix that before we get to the end of the season. There's plenty to work on, as you've seen. So, we're not going to wait till next year. That's next year.
The Melbourne Storm has moved 4 points clear at the top of the ladder with a hard-fought 18-16 victory over St George Illawarra in Melbourne. And in the AFL, Geelong has climbed to second place with a 5-point win over Adelaide in Geelong. The Cats, who trailed by 3 points heading into the final term, sealed a 13-12-90 to 13-7-85 victory, with Jeremy Cameron starring with 6 goals. Richmond, meanwhile, remains on the bottom of the ladder following a 13-point loss to North Melbourne at Docklands. You're up to date with the latest in ABC News. I'm Tim Wharton.
ABC Country brings you Grassroots, the home of the latest, best and new independent country music from home and around the globe, shining a light on the best contemporary and traditional country fused music. From folk to blues, traditional to contemporary, bluegrass to bush ballads, and everything in between. Stream Grassroots from anywhere, anytime via the ABC Listen app.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL season. Every match on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Knocked down towards Horn Francis, stood up in the Roberts tackle, gives it to Dixon, who releases Burne-Jones, racing towards goal. He slots it from 30. Port Adelaide are unstoppable right now. 8 unanswered goals.
Off to Logan Evans, outside of the foot to centre half forward. McCartan picks it up, run down by Dixon, turnover, hands, and then it goes to Burne-Jones, who drops it in short. Georgiades with the lead up, and Port Adelaide again feasting on the mistakes of Sydney under pressure for his 3rd goal before half-time. Georgiades in, and he has 3. Port Adelaide has 9.
In the middle, tap down the way of Heaney, who hands it to Chad Warner. Too casual with his exit and bowled over by Burne-Jones. Picked up by Butters, into the 50, direct kick to Rioli. Turnover footy at its best, and they get stuck into Chad Warner for it. Everything's going wrong. Willa Rioli, set shot, man on the mark, 25 out. 45-degree angle to the left. Rioli comes in, cheers as he kicks it. They knew where it was going. Rioli's got two. The bloodbath continues.
Inside 50, ball off hands. Evans just knocks it forward. And with the outside of the right boot, Mead finds Rioli, top of the square, and he'll kick his third goal. Rioli with his third. It's an absolute massacre here. The Swans at the top of the ladder. They are collapsing unbelievably.
The 2024 AFL Premiership season.
On your radio.
ABC Sport Digital.
And on the ABC Listen app.
Way back in round 15, the Dockers stuck an anchor on the Swans and they've sunk all the way down to the bottom. They are headed towards their 5th loss in 6 games. It is a remarkable first half of footy that we've just witnessed at the Adelaide Oval. Port by 77 points, 13 goals, 886 to Sydney's 139. It took a quarter and 17 minutes for the Swans to register a score, a quarter and 23 minutes to kick their first goal. Insane footy by the ladder leaders. Port Adelaide's credentials continue to be bolstered after the victory over Carlton last week, and they've shown no signs of slowing down in front of a raucous crowd who gave them a standing ovation at the first change. So still plenty to play out in what was supposed to be this Saturday night blockbuster, but it's all one-way traffic here at the Adelaide Oval. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross calling the action for you. Your experts, Premiership Bulldog Kirsty Lamb, All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco, and we've got Josh Money downstairs as well. He's been very busy. Corey Warner subbed out tactically for Luke Parker when things were really getting ugly. And Parker has the 3 touches so far for the night. Quinton Narkle, the unactivated sub for Port Adelaide. There's plenty happening around the footy world and other codes. So we've got another game on at the MCG. The third term's just got underway. If you want to hear it, jump on the ABC Listen app and hit the AFL button. Collingwood lead Carlton by 14 points, 6-7-43 to the Blues, 3-11-29. So Carlton kicked 0 goals, 8 at the start of the game and have trying to fight their way back ever since. Scott Pendlebury has 16 touches in his 400th game, so one of the best on ground right now. And it's certainly helping his team, who are currently leading by 14 points. The Super Netball Grand Final is over at the Entertainment Centre across town, and the Adelaide Thunderbirds have gone back-to-back. They've won the premiership by 2 goals over the Melbourne Vixens, 59-57. It was an incredibly close game. So the Vixens had the hot start. They're up 10 goals to 4. Took it to 16-13 at quarter time. Scores were level at the half. A goal separated them at 3/4 time. And ultimately, winners, the Adelaide Thunderbirds, by 2 goals. They were up by 4 in the closing stages. So the margin flattered the Vixens a little bit. And Romelda Aiken-George has won the MVP in the grand final with 42 goals from 51 attempts. But it was her 10 rebounds, I reckon, that got her over the line. Just 40, forcing the repeated shots for the Adelaide Thunderbirds, who are ultimately back-to-back premiers. 0437 774 774 is the text line if you do want to get in touch. Wayne from Mildura says, goodness, the Swans. I was trying to convince myself their poor form was due to playing day games lately, but tonight's fixture shows me there are plenty more other issues. There's a lot at play, Wayne, and we've got a whole half of footy to unpack. Not to mention the conclusion of this game. Our listeners in South Australia will take you to a continuing coverage of the Paris Olympics. We'll get an update on what's happening there at 3/4 time. If you are listening to us on the ABC Listen app and you're living in regional Australia or in Canberra, the Northern Territory, Gold Coast or Hobart, you can hear the Paris Olympics through your analogue radio throughout the next couple of weeks. So plenty happening across codes. Kirsty, Josh, we're expecting much of the same in this upcoming half?
You'd want to see some sort of response from Sydney, don't we? You've been smashed the first half of football. You'd want to see them come out and have a crack, I think.
I think they will, but obviously they're too far back, you'd imagine, to make any real impact on the scoreboard.
Memorable match at the moment for Ken Hinkley. Game number 268 as a coach, his 400th between his football career on field and his coaching careers. And what a 400th it's been. Swans take the ball forward out of the middle after the bounce. Goulden with a high kick to the top of the goal square. Logan Evans back with the flight, just knocked it away. And over the boundary line in the right forward pocket, about 15-20 metres around from the goal face. Wayne says he thought it might have been day games that caused the problem. Yeah, well, maybe they're having a rest now because they played so many day games. They're asleep tonight, the Swans.
Port by 77. Sydney's inside 50 though. Tossed in. Sweet wins it down to Logan Evans. Rushes it out of there around the body. Slipped through the hands of Florent because he was pushed. Horn Francis frustrated with the call. Free kick goes Sydney's way just inside the 50. Florent will start at right half forward for his set shot.
You'd imagine too far out to score. He's going to be kicking from about 52, 53 metres, but probably just outside his range.
Decides to share it. Florent chipping to the top of the goal square. Port have numbers. And Logan Evans cuts it off. Couple of touches to start this third quarter for the 7th gamer. And he'll dink it dangerously to the left back pocket. That was too casual. He's filthy with himself. Reading it well was Jordan. He tried to share it but kicked it 5 metres to water, and he's set upon by Aaliyah holding the ball. Cue the Benny Hill music. The Swans were given a gift to try and get back into this game, and they've thrown it away.
Well, I'm not sure what Jordan was doing there. Maybe he's trying to be a little bit unselfish, open up the angle, but the kick just wasn't on. It was always going to be too short.
Been a comedy of errors to start the third quarter, not just by the Swans, by both teams at the moment.
And Aaliyah produced another one. He went short outside defensive 50. Jordan went back with the flight and just knocked it over the boundary line. So we'll get a throw in right half forward for the Swans. Broadcast side of the ground. In it comes. Grundy makes his way to the front. On the ground, Warner got the hand pass back. And then Blakey inside 50. It wasn't the best of kicks, but Swans retained control. And probably this will be Wicks's hand pass. As he was falling to ground, he wanted to get it out in his own defence, in his own attacking area, and the umpire said, well, you showed insufficient intent. Jones will take over for Port Adelaide in the left back pocket.
Game 50 for the first round pick, Lockie Jones. He kicks up to the defensive edge of the square, and Ratan Olea was edged out of the drop, freed up Blakely. And Blakey will send it straight back inside 50. It was a bullet, completely cleaned everyone. At the back, Heaney brushes off Logan Evans, tight angle, snaps, and misses the lot. Their best player, arguably, struggling in his own right. Emblematic of the Swans' night so far. Free kick to the power left back pocket. They're up by 77, early stages of the third.
There's strange magic going on out there. There's this force field around the goal face for the Swans.
8 weeks ago, put your glasses down. It's going through, isn't it?
Absolutely. So Burgoyne with a long kick out of defence. Off hands, picked up by Horn Francis. Just tumbles a kick. It was a quick kick towards half forward. Swans will come away. They share it through the hands to Goulden, and then he goes out to the eastern side of the centre square. And Jordan with the mark there, forced to hold up. It's been a problem all night for the Swans. They haven't had the run and possession through the middle of the ground, and Jordan forced to hold up, goes wide, and Lockie Jones, middle of the pack with the mark, immediately spreads it. Burgoyne on this side of the ground has a lot of space, just drops it into the corridor. Logan Evans been so impressive. Hands it off to Rosie, outside of the right foot, 25 from goal. Oh, Esava Ratanolea was up and came down with the ball 25 metres out.
What a catch.
Not the least because it came out of one of his hands and he had to hold it against his shoulder on the way down, almost like a bag of cement that was sitting there.
Actually, it's interesting as well, just watching Rosie there. A couple of times he's been caught on his left and hasn't wanted to use his left foot, but just manages to find a way to kick it to the advantage of his forwards. And on that occasion, Radigalia was outstanding. Plenty of hang time, great contested mark.
So Ratanolea comes in, kicks for goal. First of the second half goes to, yes, you guessed it, Port Adelaide. A dominant display continues as we start the second half. 13 goals in the first half for Port. Now they've got 14. 14-8-92, Sydney 1-3-9.
There's two very different styles between the two teams of forward 50 entries. Port Adelaide aren't afraid to allow their tools to run and jump at the ball, and I can't work out what Sydney are trying to do when they do get the odd occasion where they do get an inside forward 50. They just don't look like they know where they're kicking it. They're really shallow entries, trying to pick off more than they can chew. Like, it's not to the forwards' advantage. I can't quite work out what it is they're trying to do and how they're actually going to score in this game of football, because they don't look like scoring anytime soon.
Well, it's trying to mount a case as well. They had the first 4 inside 50s. Port Adelaide get their first and kick a goal. The story of the night for the Swans.
Thoughts of all Australian midfielders: Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco. Grundy wins the tap but only found Butters. Hands it to Drew. Inside 50, Dixon. It's all too easy. A procession for the power. Dixon takes it in front. 40 out. This margin's about to burst.
Well, even there, they don't even look like they've got the bodies to go with Radigalia and Dixon. I mean, Francis, not a monster by any stretch, but Dixon on that occasion, outstanding contested mark.
Dixon crosses the paint of 50. Booming kick from 45. He steered it home for his second. 89 points the lead. Powerful Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. They lead 15-8, 98 to the Swans 1-3-9. 6 played third term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. And over at the MCG, Collingwood's got Carlton's number so far. They're up by 20 early stages of the third quarter. We touched on percentage earlier, Josh and Kirsty. So Port started the round 106. They're currently 112, and the live ladder has them in second. So it's a massive boost right now, and they're continuing to eye off a bigger piece of the pie.
Well, what more can they do? In actual fact, they're just so impressive. And we are seeing the best of Port Adelaide and what they are capable of. The question is, how long can they sustain it? So far, the Swans have just not been able to go with them out of the middle. Ball held up after the ruck contest. 7.5 minutes down in the third quarter. This game shot 15 goals to 1. We already know who's going to win this. Port Adelaide, when they're in this confident mood, it's hard to see too many clubs getting near them. Wines picks the ball up, hand passes for Rosie, then he gives it to Farrell, and Farrell drops his left foot kick wide for Francis Evans. Or yes, it is. Francis Evans gets up. He looks inboard, kicks long, and that advantages Laddams as he comes across the front of the pack and takes it. The former Port player, as I said earlier, with just a slightly different look now in the Swans Guernsey. Kicks it down the line. McLean comes to the front for Sydney. And then Blakey with a hand pass off. Adams, scrubby kick under pressure, turned over. It's come to Mead for Port Adelaide. Houston just knocked it on, paddled it towards Wines. His hand pass knocked down by Rowbottom. Mead followed up. Still it's Scrambly. It's on the logo on centre wing. In came Farrell, picked it up. He was immediately tackled. We'll get a ball up. It's on centre wing. Hasn't been the greatest of starts to the second half. Just the 2 goals for Port Adelaide thus far.
They're up by 89. Tapped down by Sweet. Kick from Blakey smothered, ricochets to Fox. He handed it straight to Drew, heard the call of the wrong team. Port Adelaide, Drew to Butters. Now Mead looked to spin out of the Rowbottom tackle, but he's an anaconda. Wrapped him up, brought him down. Free kick holding the ball.
I guess also too, when you're looking at Port Adelaide, the danger is that they can fall into some bad habits. But at the moment, we just can't see that happening. Their pressure's been able to be sustained, and again, they're playing a really impressive brand of footy.
Rowbottom down the line. It was a dangerous kick to McLean. Had to clunk a contested grab, and he put it down. Wines pounces, hands it to Sweet. Port Adelaide through the corridor. Logan Evans launches it into the night sky. Sits up. Dixon came late. Knocked it down to Evans. Parging into a couple of Swans. Dropped the footy holding the ball. A free kick going the way of Errol Goulden. He did have a hot start to this contest. Plenty of touches. Hasn't helped Sydney, though. To the outer side he goes, looking for Heaney, fellow superstar, up against Bergman. Ball hits the deck. Francis gathers. Bergman tackles him. Back to Goulden on the lethal left towards the 50. Too long for McLean. At the back, towed forward by Wicks, only as far as Farrell. He can mop it up for the power, and a beautiful exit to Mead, who slips over at left half back.
The only thing holding up Port Adelaide at the moment is that little slip, and he dropped it in short once he regained his feet. And the mark taken wide out by Butters. Just holds it up. at left half back. This broadcast side. Inboard he goes. Keeps it low for Bergman. Bergman diagonally on 45. Out to centre wing on the eastern side. Finds Boak in space. Takes off with one bounce and then decides, pick off the easy kick. Down to half forward to Willie Rioli. Ran wide for it. About 5 metres in from the boundary. Drops it in short. Houston with the mark. So still remains at right half forward. Opts to go into the scoreboard pocket with a long kick. Big pack. Numbers there favour Sydney in the end. Florent just clears it away. Outside 50, it'll come again. Here's Rosie. Spun out of a tackle, then went back to that eastern side of the ground to half forward. Boak with a mark, drops it inside 50. Coming late, Logan McDonald knocked it away. Picked up by Goulden. Off his right foot to Parker. Just inside centre wing, inside the centre square. Paddled on for Francis. Hand passed it out to Taylor. And then inside half forward for Parker again. Dove in front of Radaglia. Knocked the ball to himself. Picked it up. Good display of energy from Parker. And then he's given it off to Hayward. His inside kick, though, between two Swans. And, of course, Farrell came in for Port Adelaide with the intercept.
They had the numbers, Crossy Sydney. Couldn't make it work. Port by 89. Now moving it to left half back, Mead to Drew. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco with you at the G. Carlton chipping away at the deficit. 14 points, Collingwood lead. Down the line, a bit casually from Wines. Sat up at centre wing. Cunningham cuts it off for the Swans. Blakey now to Jordan. Thrusts a handball inside to Adams. Spots a target alone at half forward. Hits Hayward. Bit far out to score, you'd think. Farrell's certainly setting him back to where it landed as he tried to rush forward. So man on the mark will be 48 out. Hayward's a bit confident in the distance, so he'll take his set shot.
And we saw one in that second quarter. He was about sort of similar distance and struggled to... I don't actually think he made the distance. That was the first point they got. So he'll kick from 51, 52 metres. Take all of a good kick from Hayward.
Hayward gives it absolutely everything. Whoa, what about that? Will Hayward. Maybe a spark to give Sydney something on a grim night. Their second goal of the contest comes 13 minutes into the third term. Margin back down to 83. Port 15, 8.98. Sydney 2-3-15. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport, your experts. All Australian midfielders, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco.
Just having a look at another matchup as well. Looks like Francis has now gone forward for the Swans and McDonald's gone back. So sort of goes you back to the under 8s, doesn't it? Flip the magnets. Yep. Put the full forward at full back and the full back at full forward.
Parker going into the middle.
Yep.
For the centre bounce. It's given the Swans something, but then again, when you were at such a low ebb in that first half, anything is giving them something, if you know what I mean. So, ball goes down. Laddams into the ruck contest. There's Parker with a hand pass, then to Warner, then to Goulden. And Goulden off the left foot, sends it long inside forward 50. Francis came to meet it, ball off hands. Farrell picked it up for Port Adelaide to Jones and then Burgoyne. And Burgoyne just chips it over the top and Wines, collecting possession after possession in this match as well. Drops it short for Burgoyne, even wider. Left half back on this broadcast side.
Burgoyne wants to switch through defensive 50. Zerk Thatcher's all alone. He'll complete it to the outer side in front of the Rashudo stand. Here's Bergman. If you've just joined us, the Super Netball Grand Final is over and the Adelaide Thunderbirds have gone back-to-back, a 2-goal win. Bullet pass down the line. Sliding in Butters gives it to Boak up to right half forward for the power. Georgiadis caught behind McCartan and he knocks it over the boundary line. So the Thunderbirds won 59-57. The MVP was Romelda Aiken-George. Earlier today, North Melbourne defeating Richmond by 13. Geelong knocked off Adelaide by 5. And Collingwood currently leads Carlton by 14 points as it's tossed back in. Out of the stoppage, Wine's got a quick boot to ball up towards the right forward pocket again. Georgiadis caught behind, but McCartan's exit was in a bit of a panic. Hit and hope up towards left half back, and Houston was waiting, and we know he's got An absolutely monster boot if he wants to try and pick this off. He'll share it instead. Low and hard, direction of Burne-Jones, slipped through his hands. Georgiadis at the back, threw it out to Dixon, and he goes for goal off a step. King Charles has 3, capping that off from 35. And Port raised the bat at the Adelaide Oval with the Swans stuck on 2 goals. 16-8, 104 to 2-3-15. 15 minutes played in the third. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport.
They've sucked the life out of the game a little bit here, the Swans. You can start to hear the Port faithful starting to get a little bit rowdy out there and a bit disgruntled, but a great finish by Dixon on his non-preferred, on his left too. So just to be able to put the ball to the top of the square, have a contest. In that instance, you probably think Laddams is going to, you're going to mark that, particularly if you come up against Burne-Jones, who's significantly shorter than him. But just a fumbled mark. Port have got numbers at ground level, and Dixon on his left to slot it through.
354 goals in Dixon's career. Out of the middle, Goulden for Sydney, down to half forward and beyond actually. When Jones came across for Port Adelaide and took the mark, Zirk Thatcher out of that, slow to get up. Sends it out to Boak, who then in turn just drops it over the top to right on the boundary line, at right half back to Wines. He goes beyond the logo on centre wing, off hands, over the back, picked up by Mead to half forward. He just slapped it onto the left foot and hoped for the best, and the best was an intercept marked by Fox, who immediately handballed to Blakey with a long kick down the line.
Looking for Laddams, couldn't take it against 2, knocked down, Wines was there, hands it to Butters, centre half back, he looks to go up the spine, Horn Francis his target, spilled to the back, Radonolea to Burne-Jones, kicks from 50 to Rioli, turns and rolls through his 4th. Everything's coming up Port Adelaide. They're rocking and rolling at the Adelaide Oval. 95 points their lead. Josh Money downstairs.
Well, just about everything's coming up Port Adelaide. Alia's got a right ankle concern on the bench. Ken Hinkley just had a chat with Dr. Fisher, the senior doctor for the Power. Surely, milestone game included, you take no risks given this current scoreline, but certainly he's a watch at the moment, Alia.
Well, that's interesting as well, Josh. I was almost just going to mention that the game's at such a state now that you can almost start rotating players and resting them. Well, not so much resting, but potentially putting them forward, like your Rosies and your Butters and your Horn Francises, who are going to be so important for Port Adelaide come September. You can start to manage their loads as well. In a really good spot at the moment, the Power.
Oh, you could say that.
Yeah.
95 points.
Yeah. Very good spot.
Ball down in the middle. And it comes to Drew, and from his knees just hand passes in hope forward, and players gather around the fall of the ball, and we'll get another ball up. Josh Money had to have something else to say.
I'm just saying Ken Hinkley didn't agree with Josh Rango because Alia's just come back on.
Out of the contest this time to Roberts for Sydney, sends it forward. Francis was there, but it was off his hands, and then Evans picked it up. That was Logan Evans. Got it back to Bergman. Forward to Drew. Rosie in support. There was a throw in there. The umpire spotted it. Pinged Drew. Free kick to Heaney. Heaney, low and hard. Good kick inside 50. And that will be chopping the arms. Bergman came across. Slightly front on as well. Adams rewarded with the free kick. 40 out. 45-degree angle.
Probably what I should have said to Crossy and clarified it is, don't worry about the defenders, look after the mids.
Yep.
The ones that carry a huge amount of the workload, and as I said, they're in a good spot now where Ken can start to potentially think about doing that.
For those not aware, Josh Franco, very much a midfielder throughout his career and beyond, it seems. So here comes Adams, crosses the 50, shoots for goal, and just to the right, and sneaks it in. So a goal for Sydney, belated though it is, just their third of the game. Their first didn't come until the 23-minute mark of the second term. Such was Port Adelaide's dominance. They already had 11 by then. So here we are, closing in on three-quarter time. We're into time on in the third quarter. Sydney 3-3-21, Port Adelaide 17-8, 110. And if you've just joined us from watching or listening to something else in the sporting world, this match is pretty much done. Port Adelaide have been tremendous. As I said, 17 goals, 8 to 3 goals, 3, 20 minutes into the third term.
Still plenty on the line for it, Crossy. So we touched on the percentage and how important it is for Port Adelaide. At the moment, they've leapfrogged Geelong. So if Brisbane and Freo win, Port will stay in the top 4 by the end of the weekend. So as it stands, ahead by 4% and looking to climb even further. In the middle, Sweet wins it down. Horne-Francis taken to ground without it by Rowbottom. Whistle stays away. Heaney gets the exit for the Swans up to left half forward. Knocked away from Laddens, who's barraged into by Jones. Speaking of barrelling, bulldozing is Horne-Francis, knocking over a couple in the process. The ball ricochets inside 50 for the Swans. Rowbottom keeps wrestling for it. Now in the left forward pocket, 30 out, picked up by Burgoyne. Hands it off to Farrell and Port get out of there. Logan Evans to the outer wing. Georgiadis came late with the fist on Roberts. Here's Horne-Francis with the fend off. Got away from Lloyd. Kick up towards Ratanolea. And knocked off by McCartan over the boundary line in front of the Odie stand. 89 points, Port Adelaide's lead at the G. Goal for goal, Collingwood and Carlton. The Magpies lead at 21.
Actually really liked Horne-Francis' game. 19 disposals. He's only kicking at 43%, but has had an impact on this contest with his speed.
Here he is off the non-preferred left foot after the ruck contest and got it back on a 45-degree angle to Jones on the Logo centre wing, eastern side of the Adelaide Oval. Still looking a treat, even though we're towards the latter stages of winter. Down the line he goes with the kick, comes off hands. Chad Warner had the ball and umpire let him get away with what I thought in the end was a throw, an incorrect disposal. Umpire calls for the ball up. Right on attacking 50 for Adelaide. Swans work it through their hands. Now they're smothering their own kick. Mills' kick wasn't effective. Roberts has got it now. Back to that Logo on centre wing. Off hands. Taylor Adams came through, had to release the ball. Aaliyah picked it up. He had to release the ball and a tackle as well. Now it's with Rowbottom. Got it out of there. Good hand pass. Away to Lloyd. Right on 50. He's got a target. And Hayward can go over the top as well, and he does. And the mark inside 50 again is Taylor Adams. We'll have a look at the goal face. 45 degrees on the opposite side to where he kicked the goal before.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Taylor Adams hasn't had a huge impact of the game. He's lining up for his 13th disposal, 6 kicks and 6 handballs. He's kicked, as you said, Sydney's last goal. Normally a pretty consistent, reliable player, but once again, like many of his teammates, hasn't had enough of an impact on this contest.
Like so many players in the competition, developed his craft at the Giants before he was taken back to Collingwood. Played 175 games for Collingwood, and now he finds himself in Sydney where he kicks a behind as they cop a thrashing in round 21 of the AFL competition this year. So minus score, and still it's an 88-point game in favour of Port.
Farrell to take the kick in. Dinks it to Bergman. 35 out, defensive 50. Now to the outer side. Pinpoint to Horne-Francis. Looks inside. A little bit hot for Francis Evans. He did well to reel it in. Just behind the Logo. Stepped off his line though. Chad Warner trying to close. Did well under pressure. Finds his skipper in Rosie. Front of the Bashir stand. Chips it down the line. Hits up Butters, the dynamic duo. Disposal 22 incoming for young Zach. Called to play on. He's dancing and dodging. Cunningham trying to read where he's going. He'll look back. Bit of keepy off now for the Power. Zerk Thatcher and the defensive edge will switch. Here's Aaliyah, broadcast side. Game 150. Born in a Kenyan refugee camp to South Sudanese parents. Made his way to Australia at the age of 8. And boy, what a talent he's become. 64 games at the Swans, now at the Power. He shared it with Farrell and then Drew. Still inside the centre square. Port by 88. Drew called to play on. Finally, they'll go inside 50. Players converge. 3-on-3. Ratanolea nearly clunked it. Hits the deck. Ripping it out of there, Francis Evans. Heaney dives on his back. Tackled, ball up. 45 out, straight in front. Collingwood by 19 at the G, and the Super Netball Grand Final went the way of the Thunderbirds by 2 goals.
Out of the ruck contest, Sweet just hand passed forward in hope. Ball finds Georgiades. He slipped it wide for Rosie. A fumble. He could have had a shot for goal. Wasn't to be. Sydney in and fighting hard. Grundy picks it up. He goes wide with his hand pass. Missed Mills, a little too high for him. Houston goes in, knocks it away from Cunningham, who then knocked it to Warner for Sydney. Now back to Cunningham as it came off Mills. And Cunningham's taken across the line for a throw in right where the arc of the 50 meets the boundary line at right half forward for Port Adelaide.
Credit to the power supporters as well. Cold night in Adelaide. Plenty happening in town, but they've got a good crowd in attendance. Toss back in. Grundy took it out of the ruck and wobbled it forward. Low spiral through the centre wing. McLean put it down, and Alia's happy to say thank you very much. Kicks up to right half forward, looking for Burne-Jones for the power. Knocked away from him. Ricochets to Houston, then Rosie. Looking very Pendlebury-like as he slows things down, but then coughs it up. Very un-Pendlebury-like. Kicking straight to McLean on the logo as he retreated on the 45. He'll hand it off for the Swans. Steering by was Chad Warner, and he squares it up to Florent Ford of the centre circle, looking to complete the switch. And now on the logo broadcast side, here's McDonald playing in defence, and now Goulden for disposal 23.
Errol backs up and then goes low with a hit that found Florent, but only on the bounce. And then he goes into the forward pocket, jumping from behind. Was Heaney unsuccessfully. Picked up by Jones for Port Adelaide. Gave it to Alia, non-preferred left foot. Clears the area. Horne-Francis was pushed in the back. Crashed in. No, he wasn't. He did the pushing according to the umpire. Goulden with a free kick and then stabs a ball inboard. And I was right the first time. The umpire just pointed the wrong way. And so as a result, it will be, as you can tell, the crowd's happy about it, a free kick to Horne-Francis, who I wondered how he'd been pushed, had done the pushing because he jumped in the middle of two Sydney players.
Horne-Francis down the broadcast wing. Throw a blanket over them on the logo. Blakey at the drop, gathered, spun in a tackle, lost it. Picked up by Chad Warner, did the same. McCartan finally with a bit of composure. Hands it to Roberts, and now Rowbottom at centre half back. To go through the centre square. It was dangerous, and Lockie Jones cuts it off. Port Adelaide looking to go on the counter, but his kick smothered. Parker was standing on the mark. Spills down towards Burgoyne. Now Butters, he had a rare fumble. Enough time to regather. Over the top he goes to right half forward. Mark taken by Drew. Lowers the ice, sliding in Georgiades. It pops straight out like a bar of soap. Nearly took the slips catch and heads towards the boundary line in front of the Wanganeen stand. Port by 88. Your experts, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco.
Who don't want to say anything.
What's there to add at the moment, Crossy?
That's right. It's just one of those games. Port Adelaide being absolutely brilliant. Can't say enough about them. They break from the stoppage again. High inside 50. Umpires spotted a free kick. Holding. It'll go to Georgiades. Three-quarter time. Siren sounds. Georgiades will go back. And look at his fourth? Look at his fifth. He's got four already. Right?
Yeah, he's been outstanding, Georgiades. Obviously well documented coming off the knee reconstruction, but generally coming off knee recons, it takes 12 months to find your feet and get back into the tempo and have full confidence in your body, but he's just getting better and better. Very dangerous forward for Port Adelaide, along with Radigalia and Charlie Dixon.
So for 5 goals, which would equal his career high, in he comes and sprays it to the left. Nevertheless, point added, and Port Adelaide at three-quarter time. Fans a little disappointed with that, no reaction at all. But at three-quarter time, Port Adelaide 17-9, 111. What a dominant performance over Sydney. 3-4-22. The Swans have been on the rack all night.
Don't worry, it only gets better from here because we've got the Paris Olympics coming your way if you're listening in South Australia. We'll get an update in a moment. Over at the MCG, Collingwood lead Carlton by 25 at three-quarter time, and here it is Port Adelaide by 89. Wherever you're listening on ABC Radio, Sport Digital and the ABC Listen app, this is Saturday Night Footy on ABC Sport.
Get a unique perspective on the world around you through ABC iView, like with Australian Story.
Notable Australians, amazing lives.
I got kissed on the arse by that rainbow, no question.
7:30.
What were you most afraid of? Never see family again.
Four Corners.
I think I'm done, guys. Are you walking out, really?
Nemesis.
They destroyed each other's governments. Politics is personal.
And Landline.
Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Always free, always informative on ABC iView.
This is ABC Sports coverage of the 2024 AFL Premiership season.
AFL. On your radio.
On digital. And take us with you on the ABC Listen app.
Look for the AFL button.
Port have pulled off an unexpected demolition job on the ladder leaders. 89 points they currently lead at three-quarter time over the Swans. Plenty still to play, but let's get an update on to where we're headed next, because South Australian listeners, you're going to continue our coverage of the Paris Olympics, and what a great start it's been for the Australians. Still plenty to come. Quentin Hull's across it all to join us now. Q.
Aaron, getting to the back end of the swimming program, and the major news of the morning is that the Australian team is fastest through in the 4x100 metres medley. The breaststroke leg's really interesting there. We've got absolute superstars in all other legs, so it'll be interesting to see if that holds up. The men's doubles in the tennis, the gold medal match is taking place at the moment with Matt Ebden and John Pearce taking on the American combination of Krajicek and Ram. The Americans won the first set in a tie-break, and it's tight in the second set. Latest score I had was 4-all in that second set. A frustrating day for the Australians in the rowing. Tara Rigney finishing fourth in the single sculls. The women's eight finished fourth as well, and the men's eight finished sixth. Meanwhile, in the track and field, great news that Abby Caldwell won her repechage in the 800, so she is through to the final. It's the first time since the Montreal Games in 76 that we've had two women in that 800 semi-final. Claudia Hollingworth qualified yesterday. Both Josh Azzopardi and Rowan Browning have been run out in the heats of the men's 100 metres. They won't progress to the semi-final. And in your part of the world, I'm sure there's plenty of interest in Curtis Marshall. He was very tactically astute. He had three jumps, cleared them all. 570 his best, didn't want to jump at 575, didn't need to, so he is through to the final of the men's pole vault, and hopefully he can go even better than he did at the recent World Championships, where he picked up the joint bronze medal. So that's a selection of the action from Paris this morning, Aaron.
Can't wait to get their cue for our South Australian listeners after this game. If you're listening to us on the ABC Listen app through regional Australia or in Canberra, the Northern Territory, Gold Coast or Hobart, you can flick on your analogue radio and hear our coverage as well of the Paris Olympics. So plenty to come your way. Not only there, but obviously what's been happening in the other codes across this weekend. So a lot of footy rolling on. Here it is Port Adelaide by 89 points. The MCG, it's Collingwood by 25. Shout out to Peter from Blair Athol, who's been keeping us up to date across the night on the text line about his mate's Sack Hinkley sign that was brought to the Adelaide Oval. He didn't know what to do with it after the hot start, been trying to look for a bin. Peter reckons he's too embarrassed, he doesn't know what to do, so he's skulked his way around the Oval and snuck it under his jumper. And he's going to walk home with it tonight. So thanks for that, Peter. And Matt in Tassie's encapsulated it well. Says it's one of the strangest seasons I've ever seen. Teams are either in great form or the exact opposite. But obviously Sydney now eyeing off 5 losses in 6 games, I should say. Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco, all Australian midfielders. Premiership and 4 showdown medals between them. What a night it's been.
Yeah, it has been. It's been a really interesting night of football. I don't think any of us expected it coming here. If you look at some of the stats, Port Adelaide up plus 26 in contested possession, plus 19 in ground ball gets, and plus 24 in inside 50. So I think that sort of tells the story of the night. You can see Sydney are trying to throw numbers around the footy and cause some stoppages and just make it a real scrap. And they certainly did in that quarter. Sort of sucked the life out of it at times with very little atmosphere. But nonetheless, Port Adelaide still continually hit the scoreboard and give their fans something to cheer about.
Well, I'm not sure who the name of that text message person was, but when he talked about the bizarre season. But
Matt in Tassie.
Matt in Tassie, absolutely spot on, and this game sums it up. I mean, it's just been a bizarre game, and I say that from the point of view that the Sydney and just haven't turned up, and it's an unlike Sydney performance. They even used the words embarrassing, I think it was, halfway through that second quarter. So very, very unlike Sydney, but Port Adelaide has equally been outstanding in the way that they've attacked and played this game of footy tonight.
Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. The Power eyeing off its biggest win in 3 years. Its biggest win ever over the Swans. Grundy with a double tap down to Parker. Tackled as he got a kick away and coughed it up. Up to half forward. Farrell was waiting and it's knocked out of his hands by Chad Warner. 50 metres through the centre square they go. If you're just joining us, Corey Warner was the tactical sub early to get Luke Parker in as John Longmire just searched for answers, and it looks like Port may have activated theirs, so we'll check in with Josh Money in a moment. Farrell steers it inside 50. Burgoyne crunched. Knocked away by Blakey. Horn Francis puts his head over it, tucks it under one arm at left half forward and spears it in to Ranelagh. This kid is so good. As are Port Adelaide tonight. Set shot to come, tight angle, 30 out, left forward pocket.
He's been outstanding, I reckon, Horn Francis. Just a cut above everyone in terms of his speed, and he just adds a different dynamic to Port Adelaide. They've got Rosie, they've got Butters, they've got Drew, they've got Wines, but I guess not normally a huge possession winner, Horn Francis, but as I said, been outstanding. 24 touches and 5 clearances and 412 metres gained.
As Savo Ratunolea comes in, he's kicking across the face, and a minus score on the right-hand side. Port's lead up to 90. 17-10, 112 to the Swans. 3/4, 22.
So, from the kick in, Boyd just went short to Roberts for Sydney, and then Roberts turned it over with an easy intercept chest mark taken by Houston. His long kick beyond the centre circle that Houston intercepted, then dropped it to Wines. Wines in turn. They've switched it to the eastern side of the ground. Zirk Thatcher enjoying virtually a night off, playing at centre half back, and gave it further afield to Burgoyne, who's standing on the boundary pretty much on the eastern wing. He decided to go back, so it's keepings off. Farrell with the ball in hand. He's got the option to go back to Zirk Thatcher again. They're just padding stats now, the backs. They haven't seen enough of the ball, the defenders. So they've got it now to Bergman just inside the centre square. Let's go down to Josh Money.
Yeah, so Quinton Narkle has been injected into the game. It's Darcy Byrne-Jones who will get the quarter off for the Power.
Bergman sends Port Adelaide into the 50, and Dixon, too strong, gets in front of McDonald. Both mitts on the pill. He'll hand it off, surging by Houston's rocket from 55. It's a power party. They're up by 96. And everyone's getting a chance to enjoy the fun. 18-10, 118 to Sydney's 3/4, 22. 3 minutes into the final term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Your experts, Premiership player Kirsty Lamb and All-Australian midfielder Josh Franco.
You can tell you're really enjoying your footy when you're just happy to palm an easy kick off to your teammate instead of going back and slotting your fourth. But they look like they're just really enjoying their football. This is probably one of the most all-round performances we've seen from Port Adelaide this season, and up against what is generally a quality side in Sydney Swans. But yeah, they just look like they're enjoying their footy out there at the moment.
Well, that's almost rubbing salt in the wound, isn't it? The dish off to Houston, it almost looked like Dixon was broadcasting that about 5 seconds before he handled it, and just not good enough from Sydney. They would have scoped that, knowing that that was what they like to do, but just couldn't execute it.
Out of the middle, it'll be free kick, hang on. Umpires here and there and pointing one way and then the other, and finally they've arrived with Grundy to receive a free kick in the middle for Sydney. Around on the right foot, bangs it long inside forward 50. Shoved out of there was McLean, and he will take the free kick. Hayden McLean, he was unceremoniously shoved away by Alir, just leaned in his back and got rid of him. And Bergman took the intercept mark. Well, what would have been a mark had it not been for the huge push.
It's interesting when you look at that. So Alir was remonstrating with the umpire, saying there was nothing in it. You look at the replay, that was as big a push in the back as you'll get. Wouldn't it be nice if the umpire turned around to Alir and said, well, look at the replay, mate, like players do to umpires.
McLean comes in.
Good finish.
And comfortably kicking the goal. So recruited as he was on his way to South Adelaide in a pre-season draft. Hayden McLean has made a career at Sydney. It's not a career night though, certainly not for the Swans. 4-4-28 plays 18-10-118, and Sydney are still at the top of the AFL ladder. We're 5 minutes into the final quarter.
Well, it's definitely a push in the back. I'm not sure what Alira was doing then, but I mean, Sydney, they haven't had a lot to celebrate tonight. He hasn't had a great night or a huge night with just the 4 disposals, McLean, but nonetheless, it's still nice to go back and kick yourself a goal.
So the run home, the Swans have Collingwood, Essendon and Adelaide. You'd think they'd be favourites in all 3, but their form certainly doesn't warrant it. The conclusion of this round, Brisbane will be a game behind them, you'd think, if they get the job done, as would Freo. In the middle, Grundy wins it down. Lyons tackled, got it away to Drew, put Adelaide inside 50, driving kick, looking for Ratanolea, held by McDonald. Ball was a little wide, they kept fighting for it, and Sydney infringe. Free kick to the big Fijian, 25 out.
Going back to Sydney, how many have they got to come back? I know Tom Papley's to come back in. Amati was a late withdrawal tonight.
Dane Rampy's not on the side.
Yeah, Dane Rampy's he's obviously a big out for them as well, but apart from that, I wouldn't imagine they'd have too many sort of top liners to come back in.
Yeah, Justin McInerney, he's a handy player, but certainly not one of their superstars. Lewis Melican was the hamstring injury last week.
It's not like they've got absolute stars to come back in.
Methodical approach from Ratanolea, but it's across the face. Minor score on the left-hand side. Port by 91. 6 played final terms. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. And over at the G, it's not looking great for Carlton. Collingwood up by 26 there. As the top 8 continues to take shape, the live ladder has Port in 2nd, Carlton in 8th. So the Hawks could jump them with a win tomorrow.
Roberts plays on from full back, sends it long near the centre circles, and off the pack it went for Houston and hand pass to Butters, wide with a kick to centre wing to Farrell. He just goes all the way back inside the defensive area to Alia, standing at the top of defensive 50. He drops it in short for Jones, game number 50 for him. Wide to the other side, to the eastern side, and Houston drops it short then for Burgoyne with the lead up and mark, and then Burgoyne drops it over the top. This time it's Mead's turn to have a possession close to the boundary on the eastern side. Still, they're hanging around, the Port supporters. There have been a few drift out of the ground, but the majority of the 40,000 plus are still here waiting for that siren. You reckon they won't bang out the anthem as Blakey takes an intercept mark inside defensive 50 for the Swans.
Blakey goes for a run and then drives it with a deep kick through the corridor. McLean handed it off to Florent, spent it before he earns it, did well to regather, getting away from Rosie, hands it to Chad Warner, then Roberts. Mills and Francis, finally Lloyd at the end of the chain, gives it off to McLean from 50, arches the back, off a step, and the big man goes bang. 2 for the night for McLean. And the crowd doesn't really seem to care for it. Port's lead chopped down back to 85. 18-11, 119. The Swans 5-4, 34. Still 14 to play here at the Adelaide Oval. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. If you have just joined us, the Super Netball Grand Final went the way of the Adelaide Thunderbirds, 2-goal winners, and they're back-to-back in the competition.
It was a terrific handball there from Francis, just looking at the replay, the forward handball, and I think, as you said, in a bit of a ordinary night for Sydney, there was a really good finish there from McLean to kick his second.
Well said, picked up in the 2019. He was one of the supplementary players picked up in 2019. He played with Sandringham. He was on his way. He was signed with South Adelaide when they picked him up after the pre-season had pretty much finished, and was most improved at the Swans last season as Port Adelaide breaks from the centre square. After Houston Hand pass forward then to Mead. Hand pass forward inside 50 to Narkle, who's come on as the substitute. Across the body, into the pocket, 2-on-1. Willie Rioli picks it up. He was outside the field of play. Got the kick across the goals, and Ratnalaya thought, oh, here's a gift. I'm running into open goal. But the boundary umpire said, no, give it back to me. He's going to throw it in about 10 metres around from the behind post in the right forward pocket.
Port by 85, Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Tossed in, cleared both rucks at the back. Narkle tried to pull it in, the sub. Lost it to Fox, quick kick, a hack, straight to Houston. Just the required 15. And Port Adelaide will have a set shot. 35 out straight in front.
Oh, and just looking at the replay again, I know Robbie Fox was under immense pressure there, but when you're exiting D50 under the pump, you've got to do everything you can to get it high and wide, and unfortunately on that bit of play paid the price. Too much corridor.
Houston runs in, straight as an arrow. He's got two. And the lead's back up to 91. 19-11, 125 to the Swans. 5-4, 34, 11 played. Final term at the MCG. Carlton getting back in the contest, 10-minute mark. The margin or deficit is 19 points in the way of Collingwood. A reminder for our South Australian listeners as well, at the conclusion of this coverage at 10 p.m. local time, we'll take you straight to our coverage of the Paris Olympics. Your experts, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco in the ABC Sport Box tonight.
One thing I've been really surprised with Sydney Swans tonight, defensively they play a zone. They don't like to go 1v1 across the ground, and at no stage tonight have we seen them change their structure at all to give it a slightly different look. They're still persisting with a zone, and Port Adelaide are just kicking their way through with ease at the moment.
Charlie Dixon goes into the ruck. Interesting choice for Port Adelaide. And he's got a kick out of a hand pass. Just got the hand pass low for Rosie. Approaches half forward. Booms it long. 20 out from the goal face. Roberts jumps high and just gets the ball rushed through before Rioli pounced on it. You could smell a goal there. So that extends the margin to 92 points. Roberts plays on from full-back and finds Mills at half-back. Mills bunts it back to the point of the centre square. Hayward immediately the hand pass off to Warner, and then Roberts again follows up down to half-forward with his high kick.
Players converge at the drop. Trying to get it out of there as Wicks, who's been quiet tonight. Picked up by Adams. Thrust a handball under pressure from Evans. Got it out to Hayward. Now Mills. Squaring kick. Chad Warner's there. Takes it up against Rosie, and he's the two opposing number ones doing battle in the midfield. Chad pops it towards the scoreboard. Deadly kick, bullet-like. Slipped through the 2-on-2 at the back. Body work from McDonald, the hip and shoulder on Lockie Jones. Shot out towards Rowbottom, no-look handball. Trying to get it clear to Hayward, who's sandwiched by a couple of power players. And coming in with the dive on as well, Ollie Wines, just for good measure. We'll get a ball up, 25 out. Attacking 50 for Sydney. They're down by 91 points.
What a great contest between, I think it was McLean and Lockie Jones. Just a 50-50 ball, both going at it. Great contest.
Out of the ruck contest, Laddams just slapped it onto the right boot across the goal face for the minor score. 91 is the margin in favour of Port Adelaide, from the way you described that last passage, Aaron. I thought it was World Championship Wrestling. Wines coming in at the last moment.
It's a bit of a frog splash there over the top of the pack, I reckon. Houston, booming kick to the broadcast wing. Bit too high for Rathanolea. Hits the deck. Wines running by, though. Gives it to Mead. Put Adelaide on a surge here. Dixon on the 45 takes the mark. Knocked away from him. They wanted 50, won't get it. Gives Sydney some time to flood back. Big Charlie, forward of the logo broadcast side. Sets it up. Gets underneath the ball. Rathanolea is in space. Could have claimed it very late. Blakey knocked it our way. May have bounced off the deck in the process. Florent, no-look handball. Bit Hollywood has worked. Sydney up the spine. Rowbottom, long kick to the 50. There's no one there but Aaliyah. His former teammate takes it back with the flight to cut it off in game 150. Port by 91 at the MCG. Carlton have a set shot incoming through Matty Owies, and they're down by 19. Still 11 to play.
Yeah, free kick now, and advantage to the Swans, and then Warner tried to dodge and gave away the ball. And I don't know if it was a tackle. It was knocked out of his hands more than it was actually a tackle by Butters. But the umpire said incorrect disposal, free kick. Butters takes it into the centre square. Narkle flies into the back of his teammate Rosie, who's left on the ground. Meanwhile, Port's got the ball to Burgoyne. Burgoyne at half forward released a hand pass. The umpire said that's throwing the ball. So it's picked up by Florent as it's play on advantage. Eventually to Blakey by hand, and then Blakey blazes away, turns it over at half-back. This isn't really good footy to watch.
It's not, is it?
Zirk Thatcher to Butters. Screws it off a step up to Rosie. He's alone at the back edge of the square. Trainer's just come out at the moment to check on Nick Blakey.
Yeah.
The doctor, rather.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Port Adelaide keep playing. So Zirk Thatcher, broadcast swing. Good kick. Into the 50. Spotted Evans on the charge. That's Francis. And he takes it, and the doctor finally gets a chance to run out to the centre square, and it's Port's doctor who's looking at Lockie Jones.
Yeah, he's been chasing him for the last 5 minutes. In fact, it's probably one of the more interesting things that's happened in the last 5 minutes.
Swan's doctor's keeping busy as well because he's got James Rowbottom coming off the ground. So a little bit of late concern for both sides.
Maybe the Lockie Jones one was that McLean ground ball in the back pocket for Port Adelaide where they collided pretty heavily. Could have been a bit of head contact potentially. And Mark Fisher, the club doctor's just making sure that Lockie Jones is okay.
Hope it wasn't the top rope elbow drop from Melly Wines. Francis Evans comes in, slots his second. The cherry on top of a delicious pie for Power fans. 97 points their lead. 20-12, 132 to 5-5-35. 16 played, final term. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. And over at the MCG, Collingwood's lead remains at 19 with 9 minutes to play over Carlton. And they've got a set shot incoming, the Magpies.
He's had a solid night tonight, Frankie Evans. It's a tough position to play small forward sometimes, particularly when your big forwards are clunking him like Dixon and Radigalea are, but he's going at 67% efficiency by foot and he's kicked the 2 goals, so a solid night for him.
Here we go again. Jordan sweep. Couldn't get the best of Grundy, who knocked it down. And Parker got the hand pass over the head, found Heaney. Off to Lloyd, the veteran down the line, looking for Jordan. Finds him just near the interchange gates, about a half a metre infield. Now he plays on, around on the right foot. Spots up while he tries for Goulden. He was out-muscled by Drew. And Willem Drew gave it off to Jones, who then in turn found Georgiades, who now bombs inside forward 50. Ratanalea couldn't take it away from McCartan. Had good support from Fox. Hand pass forward to Heaney. Off his left foot, tackled as he kicked. And it's ended up over the fence as Logan Evans, it was, who came across and just pulled himself up. Fortunately, short of the fence. He'll take the free kick for out of bounds on the floor.
Logan Evans, bit too confident there as he raced inside, looking to dance around Adams, who knew exactly where he was going, has to rush the kick inside 50. Sydney's waiting with a wall. Heaney, though, wrapped up in the Butters tackle, dropped it with one arm. Frankie Evans slid in. He's got a couple of tackles to beat. Ball up. Getting a bit brash, the Power now. It's been their night. They're happy to relish in it. 97 points their lead. Grundy down, did his own crumb work as well. Tackled as he kicked and gives it away. Bergman at centre half forward cuts it off and wants a chance at goal himself to join what is already a lengthy list.
He's just too big and too tall, wasn't he, on that occasion? Will Hayward, not a small guy either, but Bergman just reached over the top of him, and once again, distance, could it be a problem? Kick from 55, it'll take everything he's got.
The 22-year-old Miles Bergman gives it everything from 55. It's starting left and not coming back. Minor score, Port by 98. Still 7 to play here. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco and Josh Money downstairs.
Looks to be just a corky for James Rowbottom on the exercise bike now, trying to warm it up. Only just come back from injury, probably not needed.
Here comes Farrell the other way for Port Adelaide from 51. Bombs, an absolute bomb. It was always going to make the distance, but just away to the left for the minor score. We're at 99. So Port Adelaide prepares to raise the bat in a different way at the Adelaide Oval.
So it is their biggest ever score on Sydney now with 134 points. It will certainly be their biggest ever win, which was previously 72. We're about to get a crowd figure as well. It's 37,501. Decent considering this was a grand final in the netball across the road. Toss back in. Sweet one it down to Drew. Now Horne-Francis, another fend off, this time on Goulden. And he wants to keep going. Takes a bounce in the centre square. And perfect pass to Ratanolea. Just sizzled it in. Out in front, 40 out. Jason Horne-Francis is becoming an absolute superstar right in front of us.
Yeah, he's an absolute weapon, isn't he? And if you're a young guy watching him, you talk about driving your legs and using your strengths, your one-wood, which is Horne-Francis' speed, but then just the composure to spot up Radigalea inside forward 50. And full credit to Radigalea, led and presented at the kicker Horne-Francis beautifully. And in the end, a really good contested mark.
1-3 for the night.
Quite like him forward.
Asava. Let's see if he can get some more reward. Ratanolea from 50. Heads for home. Misses to the left. Port up by 100. 20-15, 135 to 5-5-35. Still got a lot of footy to come. Saturday night footy on ABC Sport as the Swans look to exit the defensive 50.
They do so through Goulden in the end. Outside of his left foot, Burgoyne intercepts for Port Adelaide. Hands it off, winds. At the 45, he goes with the kick. It goes backwards at the 45, and here's a position for Aliir, who's playing his 50th game at the Adelaide Oval, which is also his 150th AFL game. Drops it to his left and finds skipper and Rosie, who returns the favour after Aliir had run out to the eastern side of the ground. Now he's called to play on. Goes with his left foot. Don't know that he's used that too often in his 150 game career. Intercept mark taken by McCartan for the Swans. He goes inboard to the corridor. Dangerous kick, but effective nonetheless. Finds Parker, who was under pressure from Drew for Port Adelaide. So Parker, the substitute, just drops it in short for Sydney. Fox with the ball. They complete the switch onto this broadcast side to Lloyd, to half forward to Goulden, and he thought about it, almost took a step to play on. So he's 51-52 from goal. And at left half forward, now he's called to play on. He steps around to his left foot, sends it to the top of the square. Huge pack. Aliir got a hand on it. Rioli picked it up off the ground. Quick hand pass to Farrell, tried to clear the area. Ratanolea came through, couldn't take it. It was hand passed off in the direction of Wicks. Went with the outside of the foot, kicked it behind. Sydney take it down to 99 points, hence you might hear a few boos in the background. The crowd not happy with that. They like the three figures.
Question. Marshall comes back into the side. What do they do with Radigalea?
The defence has been so sturdy with him up forward.
Can they play Dixon, Radigalea, Marshall and Georgiades in the same forward line?
Personally, I was expecting this to be Dixon's last game, and he's been very good tonight, so I don't know what they do. The Swans cut it off as Port Adelaide exited defensive 50, but they've given it away just as quickly. Mills to Burgoyne, who takes it in front of the Wanganeen stand, and he'll chip it to the half-back line to Houston. A couple of the numbers across the night. So Willem Drews had 32, Zach Butters 29, Errol Goulden 25, Chad Warner, another low disposal count for him, had a season low 11 last week, now 18. Lockie Jones goes long up the outer wing. 3-on-3. Dixon nearly pulled it in with one arm. Knocked down to Georgiades. Hands it to Wines. Looping over the top with the handball to Evans. Just missed Narkle surging by. Did enough, the super sub, to paddle it back to Evans. And Frankie pops it into Horne-Francis. Got there late, Jake Lloyd. He knocked it down for the Swans, and McCartan hits the belly of the ball. A high wobbler to the outer wing. Read well. Dan Houston rising above clean. No easy task, especially with the way that footy was going.
What draft pick was he?
Dan Houston.
He was a rookie.
He was a rookie, wasn't he?
Yep.
That's amazing.
It was a helicopter drop. Pulled it in. Bangs it straight back towards the 50, Houston. It clears the pack. Horne-Francis is waiting at the back. Hands it to Boak. Game 3-6-5. He snaps it through for the finish. 13th in the all-time games played record books. And Travis Boak is aging like a fine wine. He's showing no signs of slowing down. He's the 36-year-old who celebrated his birthday this week. And what a gift this has been. 105 points. Port Adelaide's lead extends to 21-15, 141 to 5-6-36. Your experts on ABC Sport, All-Australians Kirsty Lamb and Josh Franco.
How good's Jason Horne-Francis been tonight? I mean, there's 2.5 minutes to go in the game, 105 points up, and he still throws his body around like it's, the start of the first quarter. He wanted that ball far more than the two Sydney Swans defenders. Threw himself at it, got it out to Boakey and a sealer on the right foot, but he's played an outstanding game of football, and if he can play this sort of football for the back half of the season and into finals, it gives Port Adelaide fans a lot of hope.
Things are going so well for Port Adelaide. Travis Boak's kicking goals. He's got three for the season, 3-15 if you don't mind, as Sydney breaks away out of the middle, long kick, Farrell with intercept mark. Port Adelaide will come from deep in defence. Just back to that question about Dan Houston. Pick 45 in the 2015 rookie draft.
Pick 45 in the rookie. It was as a rookie, he was picked up with pick 45.
To the outer wing go Port, and Francis Evans with a bit of a sit. Nice specky on Roberts. Continues to go. Quick momentum up to left half forward. Knocked away from Ratanolea. Georgiadis, though, sweet, hands it back to him. Asava looking for Wines, who bowled over Lloyd. Head over at the Brownlow medalist. Wrenched it away to Dixon. Then Rosie. The dance step from 35. Went for home and missed. Rolling ball that's over the boundary line. Will be tossed back into play, left forward pocket. Over at the MCG, it's suddenly gotten quite close. Carlton's kicked the last 4. Magpies by 3. 4 minutes to play. If you want to hear it, flip the ABC Listen app on and hit the AFL button. We won't be offended.
I will be. Yeah. Port fans will be. Off the ruck contest, ball went to Evans, who went high with his kick, ball on the ground. Away, well, they tried to clear it away. It's only got as far as the hand pass across to Rosie, and Rosie snaps. He received it from Francis Evans and then snapped across the body. He was only 20 metres out and hooked it too far for the minus score. Game high, 106-point margin in favour of Port Adelaide as we close in with just over a minute to play on what will be Port Adelaide's biggest win of the year, and in more ways than one, not just in points, but just the target in Sydney to take down the Swans.
It means so much, doesn't it, Crossy? It'll be their 5th biggest victory ever, Port Power. Does so much for their credibility, and they're standing in the finals conversation. Port by 106. Tossed up. Grundy tried to paddle it down, became the tackler.
Tell you what I am looking forward to, I don't say this in a disrespectful way, but listening to John Longmire's press conference, just to see what he's got to say about this performance tonight and where they're currently at.
How do you get them back on track when they've lost 5 of their last 6, but still sit at the top of the table? Incredible. Out of the stoppage, Blakey handed it straight to Zirk Thatcher for the power. Up to the attacking edge he goes, looking for Francis Evans. Put it down uncontested. Grundy happy to tackle him as a result. Brought him to ground, close to the logo on the broadcast wing here. So currently Port's 5th biggest win ever. In terms of high scores, it won't crack their top 20, but an emphatic performance tonight. Tossed up, knocked down to Butters. Caught in the tackle from Parker. Tried to get it to Horne-Francis, but we'll get another ball up close to the logo and listen to the faithful. Grundy down. Blakey towed it forward, cut off by Horne-Francis. Hands it to Butters. Turns and casually chips it to Narkle. He marks behind right half forward. Narkle turns inside. Pops it close to the 50. Mead will mark. Too far out to score. Mead spots Wines in the pocket. He's floated forward and marks uncontested. 35 out. Set shot incoming to blow it out to 112. Elation across the Adelaide Oval. The Power faithful with a standing ovation. for an emphatic performance. Ollie Wines to put a cap on a tremendous night. Trots in, crosses the paint of 50. Wines heads for home. It's curling back. Port Adelaide has sent a powerful message. They're no pretenders. They've blown the premiership race wide open and left the Swans' credentials in tatters. Port Adelaide has won by 112 points. And the Swans have lost 5 of their last 6. It's Port's 4th biggest victory ever. And it's against the ladder-leading Swans on the run home to finals. We got the power to win, power to rule. Come on, Port Adelaide aggression. We are the power from Port. It's more than a sport. It's the true Port Adelaide tradition. We'll never stop till we're top. There's history here in the making. We got the power to win. We'll never give in till the flag is ours for the taking. 12 individual goal scorers as the margin continued to explode across the night. Port by 45 at quarter time, leaving the Swans scoreless. Sydney didn't get on the board until the 17-minute mark of the second term. Their first goal came at the 23-minute mark of that quarter as Port blew out its lead to 77, 89 at three-quarter time, and ultimately winners by 112. 22-16, 148 to the Swans, 5-6-36. 4 goals to Rioli and Georgiadis, 3 to Dixon, 2 to Houston, singles to Rosie, Boat, Wines on Francis, Sweet, Radonalea, Burn-Jones. Port rockets into the top 2 and they'll hold on to a spot into the top 4 by the end of the weekend. Meanwhile at the MCG, final 20 seconds, Collingwood by 3, and they're going to have a set shot, the Blues, to decide the game. Mitch McGovern has floated forward and been collected high in a marking contest. Mark Pitney took it out of the ruck against Cameron, jammed it into the 50, and sliding in, McGovern has taken the slips catch and been collected for his efforts. The swingman, former Adelaide Crow, will have a chance to win the game for the Blues here on the siren.
Remember, he earned a draw with Collingwood when he was playing for Adelaide after the siren.
This has massive ramifications. So Collingwood, their season would essentially be over with a loss. Carlton, if they lose, could drop out of the 8 with Hawthorn to play tomorrow. A win would put them back towards the top 4. So Mitch McGovern to take the set shot that will determine if the Blues get over the line. Port winners here by 112. We'll have just over 15 minutes to wrap it up with Josh Franco and Kirsty Lamb. We'll head into the rooms for the song and the interview. Mitch McGovern comes in at the MCG, crosses the paint of 50. The kick is wayward from the get-go. Out on the full, and Collingwood wins in Scott Pendlebury's 400th by 3 points. The Magpies' season is alive. The reigning premiers still in the hunt. And Carlton's season in jeopardy, as is the Sydney Swans premiership credentials after losing by 112 points here at the Adelaide Oval. Kirsty Lamb, Josh Franco, wrap it all up for us.
Well, I think we're all pretty surprised with the outcome tonight, particularly leading into the game. But what a dominant display by Port Adelaide. They've been sort of a little bit rocky road throughout the mid part of the season, but if there's ever a time where you want to start to play some really solid and consistent football, now is the time to do it. And they've done that in the last 3 weeks, to take Richmond down at home, to then go to Melbourne to win over the Blues, and then tonight with the Swans. They'll have an enormous amount of belief in their ability to push deep into finals.
Well, everything you've said about Port Adelaide, exactly the opposite applies to the Swans. And, you know, we spoke about it pre-game, how important this game was in the context of the ladder and how tight, you know, the ladder in the, you know, in terms of the final 8 and how it's going to look. And especially with Sydney's form over the last month, they had had 3 close losses. They were, I guess, blown out of the water last week against the Western Bulldogs. And as I said, having been at Sydney as an assistant coach there for 4 years and know how they approach their footy and know the demands that John Longmire places on his players, that was so far from what I expected. It's not funny in terms of their performance tonight. They lacked hunger, they lacked desire, they were absolutely smashed around the footy and ground ball gets and contested ball. And some of those numbers at quarter time were, you know, just unheard of in terms of the differential in the key areas, which probably highlights the mentality with which you approach the game. And I guess off the back of that and Port Adelaide's ability to win the ball and move the ball, and I think you mentioned it, Kirsty, throughout the call that, you know, they had a couple of methods. They go quick and at times they had a bit more composure with the ball, Port Adelaide. But overall, it was an absolute demolition of what we and most of the footballing public would have thought about 6 or 7 weeks ago was the premiership favourite. So I mentioned about 5 minutes ago, it'll be interesting to see what John Longmire says in the post-match press conference, and it'll be one to watch because it's one of those you sort of scratch your head and where do you go from here in terms of getting that group out of the hole they're currently in. And I guess the other thing as well, you actually never lose your outright ability, so their confidence is shot at the moment and it's rock bottom, and this would have eroded that even further tonight. So it's going to be interesting how they handle the next 3 weeks in the lead into the finals. But full credit to Port Adelaide, they were super, super impressive. And I know we've sat up here after games, and I guess I've always had that question mark over Port Adelaide, whether they're going to be able to cope with, you know, the finals pressure and intensity, and I had question marks around them. But if they can keep producing what they did tonight, then look out the rest of the competition.
It's very resultist, as Ken Hinkley likes to talk about, that we ebb and flow on who we're backing from week to week. But Port Adelaide has started to string together a bit of momentum to the point where, you know, 2 months ago they had no faith in where they were going to be, and all of a sudden they've won 5 of their last 6, including Carlton and Sydney in that run. And it feels like, I mean, for me, the belief is back. Is it for you, Kirsty? Do you think this club is now an actual contender?
Yeah, I certainly do, and I think we're all not alone that probably, you know, 2 months ago we were sitting there going, geez, I'm not sure if Port Adelaide are even going to play finals. It looks like there's not a lot of method to their football at the moment, and yeah, haven't they flipped that on their head, particularly taking on a couple of top-end teams as well. So I certainly think the belief is there. I think the supporters have got some belief. I certainly no doubt, given the style of footy that they played tonight, was the most composed game of football I've seen in a long time. You spoke about it, Josh, their ability to know when to go quick and to take the game on and when to slow it up and be really methodical with their ball use. It is something that I haven't sort of seen a lot of this season. But again, at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter what's happened before now. It's about how this game sets you up for the rest of the season, the last few games, and then into finals. So yeah, I certainly think that belief will be there, certainly within the playing group, given what we saw tonight.
And I think also, team, when we looked earlier in the season, we had a lot of discussions up here in the commentary box about it, but I still say Port Adelaide really won't be judged until they hit September. They've had, obviously, finals campaigns which have, I guess, probably been sort of sour notes to end a lot of their seasons on after such a promising sort of home and away series. So they won't be judged until finals, but I guess in terms of changing perception, and I guess personally changing my perception, you know, I must admit I have more confidence now that Port Adelaide are playing a brand of footy that will stand up in finals. It's another thing executing it and implementing it when the finals do come around. But, you know, the win against Carlton last week was outstanding. 5 goals down halfway through the second. They come back and beat them, you know, over there. So, you know, they're tracking along nicely at the moment.
An absolute demolition job tonight to back it up. 112 points, their victory over the Sydney Swans. Let's head into the rooms with Josh Money.
I'm not sure anybody in this change room in their wildest dreams would have envisioned this team coming back in 112-point winners, 4th biggest win in the club's history against the Adelaide, but that's exactly what's happened. It's a pretty raucous atmosphere in here. Lear leading the team into the rooms and being greeted by family, and he's now picked up his young, adorable son, who will take part in the team huddle as well. But certainly, these are some of the biggest celebrations I've seen in the Port Adelaide change room for some time, and I dare say this will be a team song sung with plenty of gusto indeed. Amazing stuff. Only 6 weeks ago this team was booed off the ground. Now they're celebrating and into second.
A monstrous win for Port Adelaide. Big thanks to Josh Money. We'll try and get some reactions in the next 10 minutes if we can. Our listeners in South Australia will be taking you to our coverage of the Paris Olympics, and everybody else will wrap things up here for your Saturday night. Still plenty of footy to come as well. So AFL Sunday kick-starting things tomorrow at 12 Eastern. And then obviously our triple header of footy. So the Giants and the Hawks, the Bombers and the Dockers, and St Kilda and Brisbane. But funnily enough, even though Port Adelaide finds itself in the top 2 and will be in the top 4 by the end of the weekend, they're not locked into finals just yet. There's still so many teams in the hunt with 3 rounds to go that mathematically they still could miss. But certainly one of the most informed sides of the contenders right now. A good little run from here as well. So they've got Melbourne, the Showdown, and Fremantle. And the way the D's are tracking, it could be another percentage booster to come next weekend, Kirsty.
Yeah, I think it certainly will be, or they certainly have the opportunity to do it. If they bring out the performance that they did tonight, then they could certainly they could easily win another 3 games of football. But we was talking at the top of tonight whether if they lost this, they were a chance of being outside the 8, and here we are a couple of hours later, and they're sitting second. So the the ladder is so close at the moment that it really still can fall anyway, and there could still be a number of teams that could make it.
Yeah, well, as little as 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, we were thinking, they're probably a bottom 4 of the 8.
Yeah.
That's the best they can hope for from here. And now it's all of a sudden it's opened up for them. They've now won their last 8 over Sydney, which is a remarkable record, that one. And last week they kept Carlton to 11 points in the second half. We thought, wow, they're back to some of their best. This week they started off by keeping Sydney to 9 in the first half.
You touched on it, Josh, as well. So what on earth are they going to do with Savo Ratanaleo? Because he looked good up forward, and they've been defensively so sound, as Crossy just touched on, that when he's not in there. So Todd Marshall's going to be available next week, and they're going to have to find a solution. And Charlie Dixon didn't help things tonight. He had a really great night with 3 goals.
Yeah, well, I've written Marshall, Radaglia, Dixon and Georgiades. The only one that's not is Finlayson. So you take out Radaglia and Finlayson, but they're different types of players. I guess the point I'm trying to make is you've got 3 tools plus Georgiades.
Well,
so they've done it before with Finlayson, so he's obviously not around. But
Ken Hickley gave that hint, didn't he? He said, he did say, Georgiades is so good on the ground, I don't consider him at all.
Yeah, and that's why I guess he's so hard to match up on as well. Someone like a Georgiades, he can sit on your head, he can win the ground where he's got speed, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with him, because Zirk Thatcher's actually been playing reasonable footy. You've got a Lear who's in really good form. But Radaglia, it's interesting what they do with him.
The other one that could be a big selection statement, Marshall hasn't had the best of years, and maybe they say, look, play a bit in the sand.
I was going to say it. I was going to say it. You beat me to it. It's working. Do you bring him back in?
Yeah.
You look at the list tonight, and out of the starting players, it's hard to really justify dropping anybody.
Yeah.
So, there's been no SANFL this weekend either. So it's not like anybody's going, well, I played pretty well, I find that, just as an aside, pretty bizarre that I think that's the second time in 3 weeks there's been no SANFL games. They've had buys. It's like trying to stretch an 18-game season to fit the AFL's agendas. Anyway.
We'll get the votes in just a moment's time. Just recapping this chaotic night of footy. So Port Adelaide dominated Sydney by 112 points. Over at the MCG, Collingwood were up by, I reckon it was around 21 points. Carlton kicking the last 4 goals of the game, and a couple of behinds either way, made it a 3-point game. Mitch McGovern had a set shot on the siren to win it for the Blues. and sprayed it out on the full from about 40 out. So Collingwood winners by 3 points in Scott Pendlebury's 400th, and Carlton's season hanging by a thread. They're just inside the 8, but it makes it much harder for the Blues to possibly even get into the top 4, which looked so likely a month ago, and that is the swings and roundabouts of this season.
The other one, it's been lost in Scott Pendlebury, but the other 400 is Ken Hinkley. Player, coach combined, this was his 400th match.
Wow.
I reckon he might remember it. I'm just saying.
He kept it very low-key during the week as well. He wasn't really open to celebrating it.
No,
but
exactly right.
Yeah.
Style.
Surely you'd relish it now.
Yeah.
Elias 150th and Lockie Jones is 50th as well. Who got the votes tonight?
I really struggled to give a one vote because you could probably give it to half the Port Adelaide team, but given a couple of lads in Georgiades and Rioli have both slotted for, they can have half a point each, maybe.
We have to pick one. Maybe we'll give Josh the hard task at that.
I would have thought Georgiades. I liked his game. Especially when the game was on the line early. I thought he was superb.
That's fair. And then I've given 2 votes to Willem Drew, 32 disposals, 75% efficiency. I just thought it was an all-round solid performance from him. I think he also went to Chad Warner early in the game and just put him to bed. Like he didn't have a touch or a lot of touches, particularly in the first half of football. So Drewy can have 2 votes, and then Jason Horne-Francis, he was phenomenal tonight. 27 disposals, 60% efficiency, 15 contested possessions, 11 uncontested, and 9 ground ball gets. So for me, his work around the stoppages with 6 clearances just shows that when he's up and running and the Port Adelaide's midfield is up and running, they look so dangerous, and I do think they have the ability to take it up against any of the best midfields as we head towards the end of the season. But yeah, I thought his game tonight, and even when the game's well and truly over and done with, he just doesn't hesitate to throw his body over the footy and put it on the line week in, week out. So yeah, Horne-Francis for me was an easy pick for the 3 votes.
It's crazy when Rosie and Butters combine for 57, but you don't really notice them, right? It feels like Willem Drew and Ollie Wines have had this tremendous month of footy, and Horne-Francis backing that up as well. That, yeah, there's 5 of them that on any given night could really destroy an opposition side, and tonight it was all of them, but, you know, who knows what it could be on the run home.
Yeah, and I think when they play good football like they did tonight, they really are damaging. They've all contributed tonight, with Drew with 32, Wines with 31, Butters 30, and Rosie 27, Horne-Francis 27. Like, that is an elite midfield that are going to work tonight and giving your side the best possible chance. 22, 16 and 148 point score, like that comes from your midfield being prepared to do the dirty work and to get their hands on the footy and to give their forwards the first access.
Incredible. Meanwhile, the Sydney Swans, in response, Errol Goulden had 25. He probably did look like one of their better players across the night. The next best was Taylor Adams with 20, and Matt Roberts with 20 as well. So a couple of their superstars fading. Thought James Rowbottom showed a lot of effort, actually, on return, but didn't quite find the amount of footy that he would have been hoping for with just 16 touches. And yeah, Sydney stuck in limbo from here. So we've talked about Port Adelaide's run. The Swans gets a little bit easier from here, but Collingwood just knocked off Carlton, and that'll be the game on Friday night to kickstart round 22, the Swans and the Magpies, and then the Bombers and the Crows following that for Sydney. So they've just got to find some form, because it's very likely they're going to be top 2, definitely top 4. Sydney, yeah, but gee, you can't afford to lose many more from here, can you?
What if they drop 2 of their last 3?
Let's have a quick squeeze at the live ladder. So,
because that's not out of
they dropped 2 of their last 3, and there's a real case that, yeah, Brisbane, Freo, Port Adelaide could pip them.
Yeah.
Geelong's probably the one that may keep them in the 4, depending on how you kind of see their form going. But
so Brisbane's got, St Kilda followed by GWS.
But what always felt like one team and the rest has now made this truly unpredictable run home that we just never really saw coming. So, it's a great time to be a footy fan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great time to be a sports fan as well, especially if you're listening in regional Australia, Canberra, the Northern Territory, Gold Coast, Hobart and South Australia, because you've got coverage of the Paris Olympics over the next couple of weeks. And our South Australian listeners, we're going to take you there in a moment's time. In fact, in 2 minutes' time, which gives us just enough time to check in with Josh Money downstairs in the power rooms.
We're going to sneak it in. I've got the Milestone man, Alir. I'm not sure that could have gone much better when you dreamt about it last night.
Yeah, I mean, it was great performance by the boys, and just the way we were able to start. Our mids were just hunting, playing territory footy, and I think it was just a great start, and good to be able to finish it off too.
Is it a strange game when you're that dominant? I'm sure you know some of the boys you're up against, and was it almost sort of pinch yourself stuff when you're that far ahead?
No, I mean, like, we got ourselves belief and that confidence inside. It's just knowing this, what the Swans do, and I think just being on, because we know they could come back at any stage. So we just wanted to just keep playing and keep pressing at them, and I think the boys were able to do that.
Did you talk to any of old teammates post-game? Do they know what's going on with their team at the moment?
No, I haven't really had a chat to them. Most of them just say congratulations on 150. So a lot of them I'm still good mates with. So it still does feel strange playing against them, even though it's been 4 years. But they didn't really say too much in that. So yeah.
Who have you got here tonight to help you celebrate?
Yeah, I've got my little man, my partner Sabina, my sister, a couple of mates from here, and then a few mates from Perth. So it's about 15 crew here. Unfortunately, my mum couldn't, and the little nieces and that couldn't make it, but I still got a squad here supporting me.
And am I right in seeing that there's maybe one more on the way for you?
Yes, you're right. There's another one on the way, so I think it's about a couple of months away. We're not sure what it is yet, but it's another blessing. So I'm able to grow my family here in Adelaide and really enjoy my time here.
I'm told it's dangerously close to the grand final, so let's hope that's not a bit too big issue for you down the line. Aaliyah, thanks for your time and congratulations on the win.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Excellent work there from Josh Marnie and Aaliyah to squeeze that in. Port winners by 112 to wrap things up here at the Adelaide Oval, and Collingwood knocked off Carlton by 3. AFL Sunday starts tomorrow at 12 Eastern Standard Time before your trifecta of footy. The Giants and the Hawks, the Bombers and the Dockers, and the Saints and the Lions to wrap up round 21. For everyone listening, you're headed to regular programming, but our listeners in South Australia, you're off to the Paris Olympics.